Chapter 38, 61. Even though Lin Yi had consumed a foundation-building pill that had no side effects, if he did not cultivate diligently, it would still cause his strength to be unstable. After all, there was a huge difference between experts of the same level. The reason why Lin Yi was so far ahead was because of his hard work. While Lin Yi was cultivating diligently in the space within the jade pendant, accumulating his foundation for his next breakthrough, what he did not know was that the two most troublesome enemies he was facing had met. After being snubbed at the Flower Mist residence, just as Shangguan Tianhua had predicted, the Southern Heaven Gate did not give up just like that. Although there were not many important figures that could help him put pressure on Hongzhong, Shangguan Tianhua was not the only one in the Soaring Sky Pavilion. For example, one of the members of the Elders' Council of the Three Great Pavilions, the third elder of the Soaring Pavilion, Su Yuanzheng, also had the ability to do so. This time, the Southern Sky Gate did not visit Su Yuanzheng alone like he did with Shanghai Tianhua. After all, Su Yuanzheng was different from Shanghai Tianhua. Although he was also one of the few big shots in the Soaring Pavilion, he was only the third elder, not the pavilion master. Shanghai Tianhua was undoubtedly the leader of the Soaring Pavilion. If the Southern Sky Gate visited him, no one would be able to find any fault with him. However, if he visited Su Yuanzheng alone, it would be easy for people to think that he was siding with someone else. However, this did not stop him from asking for help from Su Yuanzheng, the third elder of the Soaring Pavilion, because Su Yuanzheng had a well-known spokesperson, his grandson, Su Lingchong. Through young Master Su Lingchong's words, the South Heaven Gate could also achieve its goal without taking any unnecessary risks. The place where the Southern Sky Gate and Su Lingchong had agreed to meet. It was the #1 restaurant in the Soaring Pavilion, the Hualan residence. Young Master Su, aren't you overestimating the Southern Sky Gate by spending so much money to invite him to a banquet? The young master sitting next to Su Lingchong asked in confusion. This person was called Lu Tianyu, the same as Su Lingchong. He was the grandson of a powerful elder in the Soaring Pavilion. However, his grandfather was ranked below Su Yuanzheng. According to the rules of the second generation, his status was slightly lower than Su Lingchong's. He had an extremely close relationship with Su Lingchong. The relationship between the two of them was also extremely deep. Within the circle, they were Su Lingchong's most reliable and most reliant subordinates. Basically, wherever Su Lingchong was around, he was the real second in command. As for people like Kang Mingming and Meng Jueguang, who were Su Lingchong's new underlings, Su Lingchong's subordinates, their statuses were far below his, and they could not be compared. Tianyu, what do you think my intention is by inviting the South Heaven Gate to a feast? Su Lingchong asked with a profound look. Isn't this the guy who sent you a message, asking you to help pass a message to the third elder? Lu Tianyu might be Su Lingchong's loyal follower, and his strength and family background were also not bad. But this young master never liked to use his brain. Su Lingchong couldn't help but laugh when he heard that. He asked this young master to help bring a message, so he should be the one to treat me to a meal. Why should this young master spend so much money to entertain him? This young master is not sick in the head. Then, why is this? Lu Tianyu scratched his head in confusion. The reason is simple. He's the eldest senior brother of the Soaring Sky Pavilion, while I'm the second senior brother of the Soaring Sky Pavilion. I'm ranked below him, Su Lingchong said with a profound smile. So what? You're treating him like this just because you're ranked below him? With young Master Su's background, isn't it only a matter of time for you to step on him? Previously, your strength was slightly weaker, so it's not a big deal to let him be the eldest senior brother of the Soaring Sky Pavilion. However, now that young Master Su has also reached the peak foundation establishment realm, What's there to be afraid of? Lu Tianyu was even more confused. 2 months ago, when young Master Su went to welcome the newcomers as the envoy of the Soaring Sky Pavilion, he was only at the peak late foundation stage. However, after 2 months, with the help of various pills, he had reached the peak foundation establishment stage. He was only a step away from the golden core stage, just like the South Heaven Gate's eldest senior brother, who was in charge of the Soaring Sky Pavilion. Hearing Lu Tianyu's doubt, Su Lingchong couldn't help but laugh. Tianyu, aren't you very clear about it? I'll be frank with you. The reason I invited the Southern Heaven Gate to a feast today is to tell him that I'm now an expert at the Peak Foundation establishment realm. It's time for him to give up his position as the eldest senior brother of the Soaring Sky Pavilion. I see. I knew it. Our young Master Su isn't the kind of person to let others take advantage of him. There's a deeper meaning to it. Lu Tianyu burst out laughing, but then frowned and said, however, that Southern Heaven Gate does have some background. Would he really give up his position just because young Master Su said that? Humph, we'll have to see if he knows what's good for him. It's better to be polite before resorting to force. Today's feast is just a greeting. There's still more to come. Su Lingchong harumphed coldly. Even young Master Su was slightly afraid of the background of the 3 heroes of the Nan clan. Unless he had no other choice, he didn't want to become enemies with the 3 heroes of the Nan clan. However, as a cultivator, his own interests came first. If the 3 heroes of the Nan clan were so stupid as to block his path, then Su Lingchong didn't mind paying a small price to trample on them. You guys are always scheming and scheming. I'm sick of it. Anyway, when the time comes, I'll do whatever young Master Su tells me. Lu Tianyu scratched his head as if he had a headache. Then his expression changed, and he said excitedly, let's not talk about these troublesome things. Young Master Su, let me tell you something fun. What's fun? Su Lingchong raised his eyebrows in surprise. When these young masters gathered together, they rarely did anything serious. Basically, they just had all sorts of fun. Lu Tianyu, this guy, was the one who liked to play around the most. Murongzhen, that blind slut, was trampled all the way to the new welcoming pavilion by me. Not only that, I even made her a new disciple of the Clear Cloud Pavilion. Even if she comes out from the new welcoming pavilion, she can only go to the Clear Cloud Pavilion, that kind of trash shelter. Young Master Su, don't you think that's fun? Lu Tianyu said with a smug smile. Chapter 38:62. Ever since Murongzhen arrived at the 3 great pavilions, she had been trying her best to attract the attention of the young masters from the Soaring Pavilion, especially Su Lingchong, who was an extremely important young master. However, the sad thing was that although Su Lingchong had shown some interest in her, he had never truly taken her seriously. He did not even remember her name. The one that scolded Lady Shangguan last time. Young Master Su, did you forget? Lu Tianyu blurted out in shock. He had purposely tried to punish Murongzhen to please Su Lingchong. If Su Lingchong had no impression of the woman, it would be too boring. Oh, it's her. Su Lingchong nodded as he collected his thoughts. He was still not interested. With his status and background, a mere Murongzhen was not worthy of his attention. However, when he recalled how she had scolded Shangguan Laner, he calmly agreed. That's good. Let her be. Out of sight, out of mind. As for continuing to deal with Murongzhen, Su Lingchong had no intention of doing so at all, especially since this person was related to Elder Murong. Su Lingchong did not want to do so. Ah, fine. I thought you would at least be happy about it. Since you're not interested, forget it. Lu Tianyu shrugged in disappointment. He had no grudge against Murongzhen. He was merely trying to please Su Lingchong, which was why he had decided to punish Murongzhen. Now that young Master Su was not interested, It was pointless. With Morong Zhen's indirect kinship with Elder Morong, with big shots like eldest Miss Shangguan and young Master Su standing in front of him, no matter how hard he trampled on Morong Zhen, it was unlikely that Elder Morong would step forward to protect him. However, he was still an elder of the Soaring Sky Pavilion. Lu Tianyu was not stupid enough to provoke him, for no reason. Initially, he had prepared a lot of tricks, but now the woman had unknowingly dodged a bullet. As Su Lingchong and Lu Tianyu were chatting, the door to the private room was suddenly pushed open, followed by a deep voice. "It seems like I'm late, young Master Su." We're early. It's been a while. How are you, senior brother?" Su Lingchong smiled and gestured for the South Heaven Gate to take his seat. Southern Heavenly Gate and Yu Zhu exchanged glances with one another. After nodding at Lu Tianyu, they sat down opposite Su Lingchong and Yu Zhu. This time, they were not paying a visit to a top expert like Shanghai Tianhua, so there was no need for them to be too nervous. The reason why the Southern Heaven Gate brought Yu Zhu along was because they were planning to use Su Lingchong to pressure Hongzhong while trying to find Lin Air through other means. According to Yu Zhu's deduction, this Lin Air was very likely related to Welcoming Pavilion. Welcoming Pavilion Master Hu Yunfeng was Su Yuanjing's direct subordinate. If they wanted to do something in Welcoming Pavilion privately, it would be impossible without young Master Su's approval. Southern Heavenly Gate looked at the luxurious feast on the table, which was overflowing with spiritual energy. After taking a seat, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. "I'm the one who asked for young Master Su's help this time, yet young Master Su treats me so generously. I'm really flattered." Even though the Southern Heavenly Gate was the eldest senior brother in charge of the Soaring Sky Pavilion, it was difficult for him to eat such a luxurious feast that cost thousands of spiritual jades. "It's only right. You're the eldest senior brother, so as your junior brothers, we should be more respectful to you. This way, when the time comes, we'll be able to ask for your help. Isn't that right?" Su Lingchong smiled. "Young Master Su, you seem to be implying something?" Southern Heavenly Gate frowned slightly. "Of course not, eldest senior brother. You're overthinking it. I'm sincerely looking forward to eldest senior brother's promotion," Su Lingchong said in a seemingly casual manner. After hearing this, Southern Heavenly Gate's eyes flickered. He was a smart man, so he could roughly guess what Su Lingchong was trying to say. He had long heard that Su Lingchong's strength had made a breakthrough recently and had become a Foundation Establishment realm expert who was on par with him. Now, it seemed like Su Lingchong could no longer hold back his loneliness and was preparing to replace him. Although Southern Sky Gate had always been confident in its own strength, it didn't have a strong background in the North Island. If Su Lingchong was determined to win, it would be hard to say if he could keep his current position as the senior brother in charge of the Soaring Sky Pavilion if he used all his means. "Young Master Su, you must be joking. I don't dare to think about promotion. I'm planning to stay in this position for a few more years to lay a good foundation for the future." Southern Heavenly Gate replied calmly. In the three great pavilions, no matter how strong the background was, personal strength was indispensable. Without sufficient strength, one would not be able to sit in the corresponding position. With Southern Heavenly Gate's current strength in the Foundation Establishment realm, although there was still room for improvement on the surface, the position of the eldest senior brother in charge of the Soaring Sky Pavilion was definitely the hottest key position at this stage. Even if he could be transferred to some seemingly more prominent position, he would be demoted on the surface. Therefore, unless he was forced to, or he could aim for a higher position such as a direct disciple or a senior brother in charge, Southern Heavenly Gate would never take the initiative to retreat. If they really fought, the three heroes of the Nan family would not be so easily provoked. The so-called direct senior brother in charge was the senior brother in charge of the disciples in the gold core stage, who had officially been apprenticed. However, that position, not to mention him, who had not reached the gold core stage, even those in the peak gold core stage would have to fight for it with their background. Moreover, if he was in the gold core stage, he would have been apprenticed to the inner gate long ago and become an elder's nominal disciple. Then he would be a person who could shake the whole North Island with a stomp of his foot. The direct disciple of an elder was a world of difference from him, the eldest senior brother in charge. In the cultivation world, the direct disciple was almost the same as the son or grandson. If he could successfully apprentice, then he could be said to be the second or third generation of cultivation. Even if he wasn't as prominent as Su Lingchong, he would still be someone who had the ability to attend all kinds of upper-class banquets. And if he could be apprenticed to Shanghai Tianhua, then he would be almost the same as Shanghai Laner. It wouldn't even be a problem for him to step on Su Lingchong. However, Shanghai Tianhua rarely accepted disciples. Ram Jia could be considered as one of his nominal disciples. Of course, he was only nominal and not a direct disciple. However, was it that easy to reach the gold core stage? Before reaching the gold core stage, his position was still very useful. As for the so-called apprenticeship in the foundation establishment stage, such as Yu Zhe and Nan Tianyong, it was actually just a nominal relationship. It was similar to the mortal world recognizing each other as their godparents. In reality, the three great pavilions did not officially recognize it, but they would not stop it either. It was normal for cultivators to form cliques. Chapter 38:63. All right. The Southern Sky Gate nodded in a deep voice. He was very clear that Su Lingchong was only greeting him today. If he was sensible and took the initiative to give up, then perhaps he would be able to obtain some benefits. But if he wasn't sensible, then what awaited him next would probably not be anything good. Suppressing his unhappiness, the Southern Sky Gate calmly explained the situation to Su Lingchong. His words were no different than when he was talking to Shanghai Tianhua. The only difference was the tone. Pressuring Hong Zhong of the Hong Merchant Guild? All right, this young master will pass on these words to grandfather without changing a single word. However, whether or not he will agree to help is not something that you and I can decide. Eldest senior brother, you understand as well, right? Su Lingchong had a playful expression as he curled his lips. Of course, this matter is up to the third elder. The Southern Sky Gate expressionlessly nodded. For the sake of the eldest senior brother position in the soaring pavilion, this eldest young Master Su had already begun to pressure him. He had now completely realized that there was no such thing as a good feast. Eldest young Master Su had prepared a feast at Hongmen for him today. Then, apart from this matter, does eldest senior brother have any other matters that you need help with? I would be more than happy to oblige. Su Lingchong pretended to be polite. As long as the Southern Sky Gate asked him for more things, it would mean that he would have more leverage over them, which would increase his chances of forcing them to lower their heads. The Southern Sky Gate gave Yu a look. Yu immediately nodded and said, "Young Master Su, there's one more thing I need your help with. It's the same thing from last time. We want to know if Lin Air is hiding in the welcoming pavilion." Lin Air? Didn't I bring you to see him last time? Su Lingchong frowned. Last time, he thought the Lin Air this guy was looking for was Lin E. He thought it would be less troublesome to get someone else to do the dirty work. However, it turned out to be a complete waste of effort. Young Master Su, the newcomer from the Blue Cloud Pavilion, Lin E that you brought me to see last time is indeed not Lin Air. However, this doesn't eliminate the suspicion of others, especially those newcomers from Soaring Sky Pavilion and Profound Secrets Pavilion. Yu answered. Last time, when he was appraising Lin Yi, he also took the opportunity to observe the other new disciples of the Clear Cloud Pavilion, but none of them matched Lin Yi's description. Initially, he planned to observe the new disciples of the Soaring Sky Pavilion and Profound Pavilion as well, but he didn't expect that after Hu Yunfeng brought him away, she would immediately turn hostile and kick him out. Now that he thought about it, it was probably because young Master Su was unhappy that he had made a wasted trip. Hu Yunfeng was observant, and in order to curry favor with young Master Su, he naturally wouldn't be nice to him. After eliminating the suspicion of the newcomer of Blue Cloud Pavilion, the newcomers from the Soaring Sky Pavilion and the mysterious pavilion also became a lot more suspicious. Although the old men did not seem very likely, there were exceptions. You mean you want to go to the welcoming pavilion to investigate again? Su Lingchong looked a little impatient. Since Lin Yi was not the Lin heir that this guy mentioned, then this kind of thing did not benefit him at all. He did not have the patience to continue wasting time with a small character like Yu Jie. That's right, this matter is very important to us. Please help us, young Master Su. Yu Jie looked sincere. He loudly requested, if that's the case. Su Lingchong looked at the expressionless Southern Sky Gate, then said, since eldest senior brother has appeared, this young master will definitely help you with this small matter. This young master will write a letter to Hu Yunfeng. After you go there, ask him to try his best to cooperate with you. Also, you can ask Kang Mingming for help. He should have a better understanding of the newcomers. Thank you, young Master Su, Yu Jie hurriedly said gratefully. Southern Sky Gate stood up and cupped his hands towards Su Lingchong. He cupped his hands towards Su Lingchong and said, since the discussion is over, if young Master Su has nothing else, then I will take my leave first. Eldest senior brother, take care. I won't see you out. Su Lingchong nodded calmly. Seeing that Southern Sky Gate and Yu Jie left, Lu Tianyu, who was at the side, said, why do I feel that Southern Sky Gate is stubborn and doesn't want to give in to you, young Master Su? Su Lingchong snorted. He had expected this. No matter what, he is one of the 3 heroes of the Nan family. He has some background in Middle Island. He won't give up such an important position like the eldest senior brother supervisor so easily. I'm just greeting him today. Next, I will teach him a lesson. I believe he is a smart man. What if this guy doesn't know what's good for him? Lu Tianyu asked curiously. Although Su Lingchong was the young master of the North Island, Southern Sky Gate was not weak after all. He was strong enough, and above him was the leader of the 3 heroes of the Nan family. He even had a background in Middle Island. If the 2 of them really fought, it would be like Mars colliding with Earth. Doesn't know what's good for him? Then I will beat him up until he knows what's good for him. The position of the eldest senior brother supervisor is very important to my future development. Even if I have to pay a huge price for it, I will not hesitate. Su Lingchong was determined to get it. Ha! Then I really hope that Southern Sky Gate will be more strong-willed. Our Soaring Sky Pavilion hasn't had a good time for a long time. Lu Tianyu laughed heartlessly. Looking at this guy's desire for the world to be in chaos, Su Lingchong shook his head with a bitter smile. If Lu Tianyu was not his only brother in Soaring Sky Pavilion, he would have killed him long ago. However, this guy was just being sarcastic. If young Master Su really wanted to fight to the death with the 3 heroes of the Nan family, Lu Tianyu would definitely not stand idly by. No matter what, he was still a young master. If this guy really wanted to get serious, he was definitely not easy to deal with. After coming out from Huayang residence, Southern Sky Gate's expression was extremely dark. He had initially asked Su Lingchong to pass on a message, but he had been led by the nose by Su Lingchong as if there was a huge mountain on his shoulders. Although Southern Sky Gate did not show any signs of weakness in front of Su Lingchong, young Master Su's influence in the soaring sky pavilion was undeniable, now that he had his eyes on the position of the eldest senior brother supervisor. It would be a lie to say that he did not feel pressured. "Marshal Uncle, when are we going to the newcomer welcoming pavilion?" Yuzha asked. "I don't have much time to waste. Let's go now." Southern Sky Gate made a prompt decision. Southern Sky Gate. And Yuzha immediately went to the newcomer welcoming pavilion. When they arrived, it was already noon, and it just so happened that there was a newcomer challenge today. After receiving Su Lingchong's handwritten letter, Hu Yunfeng did not make things difficult for Yuzha this time. She nodded her head, indicating that he could do as he pleased. After all, even without young Master Su's handwritten letter, Yuzha still had the Southern Sky Gate standing beside him. Chapter 38-64. There will be a newcomer challenge later in the afternoon. It'll be convenient for you two to observe, but I have to say something first. If you two really find Lin Air, it's best to ask the disciplinary hall to step in. Don't make things difficult for me, Hu Yunfeng warned solemnly. If this Lin Air was really a member of the Welcome Pavilion, then no matter how deep the hatred between him and the Southern Sky Gate, and Yuzha was, as the pavilion master of the Welcome Pavilion, Hu Yunfeng couldn't just sit back and do nothing. Unless the disciplinary hall stepped in, then they could take him away. "Pavilion master, don't worry. I know what I can do and what I can't," Southern Sky Gate nodded. "All right, I still have some matters to attend to, so I'll be taking my leave first. If you two have any questions, feel free to ask Deacon Kong." Before Hu Yunfeng left, she called Kong Xiaoming over to greet the two. Thanks to Master Su Lingchong's care, Kong Xiaoming was doing quite well in the welcoming pavilion. Even in the newcomers' challenge competition, which was his weakest point as an alchemist, he was able to handle it with ease because he was ahead of the other newcomers by a large margin. Among all the newcomers in the Rising Sky Pavilion, only Zhong Pingliang was stronger than Kong Mingming, and Zhong Pingliang couldn't make things difficult for Kong Mingming under Su Lingchong's orders. So Kong Mingming was doing quite well. Maybe after a while, the other newcomers in the Rising Sky Pavilion would ask for elixirs through their own channels, and they would be able to break through to Foundation establishment very soon. At that time, even with Master Su's care, Kong Mingming might not be able to stand out like he was now. But at least for now, Kong Mingming, was in charge. After listening to Southern Sky Gate and Yuzha's intentions, Kong Mingming suddenly rubbed his chin and said thoughtfully, "Senior brother are you sure that Lin Yi isn't the Lin Air you're looking for?" "Of course, why do you ask, Deacon Kong?" Yuzha asked curiously. Kong Xiaoming pretended to be profound. "Actually, I've heard about Senior Nantian Yong. Actually, the technique that Lin Air used. It is very similar to a move that this little brother knows. I wonder if the two of you have heard of the pill firebomb that only an alchemist can use? Coincidentally, Lin Yi is an alchemist. Pill flame bomb, the Southern Sky Gate, and Yuzha were both stunned. Although they had never seen this martial skill with their own eyes, as the name suggested, this was a technique that used pill fire. It was not strange that only alchemists could use it. However, alchemists were notoriously weak in actual combat. How could a single Danfire bomb be so powerful that it could instantly kill Nan Tianyong, an expert at the peak of the late stage of the Foundation establishment stage? Seeing that the two of them were still hesitant, Kong Mingming hurriedly continued, "Don't doubt me. The alchemic firebomb is not very useful in a real battle, but its power is very shocking. If it had been charged for a long enough time, it would not be strange for it to kill anyone." "Is this true?" The Southern Sky Gate and Yuzha looked at each other. This characteristic that Kong Mingming described was quite consistent with Lin Yi's actions that day. Don't forget that before coming out to deal with Nan Tianyong, this guy purposely stayed at the Hong Merchant Guild for as long as 2 hours. Perhaps he was holding back this so-called pill flame bomb. If this little brother dares to lie, may the heavens and earth destroy me, Kang Mingming vowed. His intentions were self-evident from his eagerness and enthusiasm. It was to pour dirty water on Lin Yi. Whether or not Lin Yi was the Lin Yi that the two of them were looking for, he didn't know. But even if Lin Yi wasn't, Kang Mingming would still think of a way to push the blame onto Lin Yi. Anyway, to him. Even if he failed, he wouldn't lose anything. But what if the two of them believed his words and killed Lin Yi with one palm without distinguishing between right and wrong? Wouldn't that be worth it? Kang Mingming had already made such a vow. If the Southern Sky Gate and Yuzha still didn't believe him, it wouldn't make sense. Besides, what this guy said did make sense. Even if Yuzha had previously confirmed that Lin Yi's appearance was completely different from Lin Yi's, he still had to confirm it just in case. There was still some time before the challenge. The Southern Sky Gate, and Yuzha decided to test Lin Yi now. After all, if they waited until the challenge began and all the rookies were gathered together, it wouldn't be easy for them to test Lin Yi under the watchful eyes of the crowd. Of course, Kang Mingming couldn't ask for more when the two of them suggested this idea. He immediately led them to the number 1 cave abode at the foot of the mountain where Lin Yi was. Then, before the two of them took action, he took the initiative to leave. With the importance the 3 pavilions placed on rookies, anyone who attacked a rookie without permission would be severely punished. Furthermore, Kang Mingming didn't know how severe Southern Sky Gate and Yuzha would be. If he accidentally killed Lin Yi, it might cause a commotion. Although Kang Mingming was happy to see this result, if he was present, he might be implicated and bear the responsibility. It was best to leave as soon as possible. After all, he had successfully placed the blame on Lin Yi. Whether he would be beaten up or killed would depend on Lin Yi's luck. Anyway, Lin Yi, that pretentious bastard, was definitely going to suffer today. You do it. Southern Sky Gate lifted his chin at Yuzha, indicating for Yuzha to make a move. Yuzha's face immediately turned awkward. Attacking a rookie from the welcoming pavilion without permission was not a light crime if this matter were to blow up. Furthermore, they were only suspecting Lin Yi. They were far from confirming it. If they were to test him rashly, wouldn't the price be too high? Southern Sky Gate could see Yuzha's dilemma and immediately said, "I'll bear the consequences for you. Hurry up, don't waste time." At this moment, there was no one around. However, if they waited for a while longer, when the rookie challenge was about to begin, the other rookies would probably walk out of the cave abode and gather. When that happened, there would be no chance to test him. Without a choice, Yuzha could only summon up his courage and touch the restriction of the first cave at the foot of the mountain. A moment later, Lin Yi opened the door and couldn't help but be stunned when he saw Yuzha standing in front of him. Could it be that my identity was exposed? Lin Yi's heart couldn't help but skip a beat. This was his first reaction, but then he felt that it was a little strange. Even if this guy recognized him as Lin Air, with his little strength, would he dare to come looking for trouble so openly? Even if the Southern Sky Gate personally came, he wouldn't dare to attack him in broad daylight, let alone a mere middle-stage foundation, establishment stage, inner disciple, right? Daring to attack a rookie from the welcoming pavilion in the cave abode of a rookie. The disciplinary hall would be the first to punish him. Chapter 38:65. At the same time that Lin Yi was in a daze, Yuzha was also in a daze. In the instant that the door opened, this Lin Yi really did look a bit similar to the Lin second in his memories. However, the similarity was only in his stature and temperament. His face was completely different. After staring blankly for a moment, the two of them came to their senses at the same time. Lin Yi immediately said warily, "What business do you have with me?" Lin Yi purposefully asked in a very vague manner. He wanted to test whether or not the other party had seen through his identity. Also, what was he planning by suddenly appearing here today? Yuzha sized up Lin Yi. Just now, in his days, Lin Yi did look a bit similar to the Lin second he was looking for. This discovery made him overjoyed. But now that he was staring at this completely different face, the more he looked, the more he felt that it didn't look the same. This made him rather confused. Could it be that because he had been too excited just now, it was all just an illusion? Yuzha felt a bit disappointed. But whether or not it was true, just looking wasn't enough. He had to see the results of his test. Come with me. If you don't want to come, you can try. Yuzha said in a low voice, then turned and left. Lin Yi couldn't help but frown. This guy was just as he remembered. He really was crafty and difficult to deal with. He had wanted to test him, but he had thrown out such a brainless sentence. He couldn't get any useful information out of him. But why did this feel a bit like the situation in a school in the mortal world, where the senior students would call out the junior students to teach them a lesson? Looking at Yuzha's back, Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh. He followed without hesitation. It didn't matter if the other recognized him or not. Facing a mere Yuzha, there was nothing to be afraid of. For the sake of the star ink stone, it wasn't just Yuzha who had racked his brains to find him. How could Lin Yi not want to find a chance to silence him, even though it seemed a bit risky? But there was no reason for Lin Yi to let go of an opportunity that had been delivered to his doorstep. He still had a fatal weakness in his hands. Not to mention the fact that Yuzha was alone. Even if he called the Southern Heavenly Gate over and used this weakness at a critical moment, he would definitely be able to protect himself. Silently following behind Yuzha, the two of them walked for 2 miles. They walked to the foot of the mountain, where the other rookies would not notice for a short period of time before stopping. You can tell me now, can you? What do you need from me? Lin Yi looked a little nervous. Of course, this was all an act. On the surface, he was just an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator at the Blue Cloud Pavilion. Suddenly being called out by Yuzha for no rhyme or reason, it would be abnormal if he wasn't nervous at all. What is it? Don't you know what you've done? Yuzha laughed coldly. He knew that the Southern Heavenly Gate was definitely watching from the side, so he didn't dare mention the word star ink stone at all. He might as well use words to trick Lin Yi. Huh, what did I do? Lin Yi's face was full of confusion. Then, as if he had suddenly realized something, he said, could it be that you were called over by Meng Jueguang to deal with me? Last time, Yuzha had appeared with Su Lingchong and the others. This was something that anyone could see, so when Lin Yi asked this question, from the perspective of a normal Blue Cloud Pavilion newcomer, it wasn't out of place at all. Meng Jueguang? What kind of nonsense is that? Yuzha was instantly stunned. He didn't know about the conflict between Lin Yi and Meng Jueguang, but last time, when Meng Jueguang introduced Lin Yi to him, he really didn't say anything nice. The two sides didn't get along. This was something that was obvious. Come to think of it, he, Yuzha, was a dignified inner sect disciple of Soaring Sky Pavilion. Moreover, he was a middle-stage foundation establishment expert. That Meng Jueguang was only a new manager from Blue Cloud Pavilion. What ability did he have to trouble Yuzha to personally help him? Didn't Meng Jueguang ask you to come? Then why did you call me out? Lin Yi pretended to be surprised. Asked by Lin Yi, Yuzha was a little hesitant. If he had been able to use his words to trick the other party into revealing some clues, he would not have felt any psychological pressure. However, judging from the other party's reaction, there were no flaws. He was just an ordinary Blue Cloud Pavilion newcomer. This was going to be difficult. After all, from Yuzha's point of view, even if what Kong Mingming said was true, Even if this Lin Yi was really an alchemist and knew how to make the pill firebomb, the possibility of this guy being Lin Air was already very small. For this small possibility, was it worth it to take such a huge risk and attack a newcomer from Welcoming Sky Pavilion? As Yuzha was hesitating, the South Heaven Gate's voice suddenly appeared in his ears. Tell the kid that you're going to kill him. Then, don't waste your time talking to him. Attack him right away and watch his reaction carefully. Yuzha was shocked and subconsciously looked around. After he came back to his senses, he forcefully restrained this impulse. The Southern Heavenly Gate was not in his line of sight. The reason why he could hear this sound was because he had used the 1,000 Li true Qi technique. Of course, although it was said to be 1,000 Li, the actual effect could not be so exaggerated. However, a few Li was not a problem. Also, this technique had an advantage. After locking onto the target, only the target could hear the sound, but the surrounding people would not hear it, even if they were less than 3 meters away from the target. However, Southern Sky Gate had forgotten one thing. Even if Lin Yi could not hear the words he transmitted to Yuzha, with the distance between Lin Yi and Yuzha, Lin Yi's perceptive ability could more or less detect a trace of a ripple. Of course, it could not be said that he had forgotten. A normal cultivator's perceptive ability would not be as strong as Lin Yi's. Furthermore, Yuzha's subconscious reaction of turning his head was already an absolute flaw in Lin Yi's eyes. It was just enough to prove it with the strange ripple that he had just captured. As expected, there was someone else. Lin Yi instantly made a judgment. It was very easy to determine that this person was most likely the second of the 3 Nan brothers mentioned in Shangguan Laner's letter, Southern Sky Gate. When he first saw Yuzha, Lin Yi had this suspicion. After all, Yuzha was only a middle-stage foundation establishment, inner disciple of Soaring Sky Pavilion. It was very suspicious that he dared to cause trouble for a newcomer from Welcoming Sky Pavilion in broad daylight. However, if there was a Southern Sky Gate behind him, then it would not be strange at all. Chapter 38:66. As he finished speaking, Yuzha didn't give Lin Yi any chance to react. Sword Qi instantly gathered in his hand, and he used the 21st form of the fatal consecutive sword. To a normal, early-stage foundation establishment expert, this move was enough to kill him. Lin Yi was shocked. Although he had sensed the existence of the Southern Sky Gate, he had no idea what the Southern Sky Gate had said to Yuzha, who knew that Yuzha would suddenly attack him like a madman. And it seemed like he really wanted to kill him. Knowing that there was an expert like the Southern Sky Gate watching from afar, Lin Yi had a hard time figuring out how to deal with it. If it was just facing Yuzha, Lin Yi wouldn't be in a difficult position. He had a high chance of winning in a one-on-one fight. Even if his identity was exposed, it didn't matter. After all, even if he couldn't kill him, he still had a fatal weakness in his hands. But now, Lin Yi didn't dare to expose his identity. Once he confirmed that Lin Yi was the second Lin they were looking for, who knew if the Southern Sky Gate would jump out and slap him to death. Lin Yi didn't have the chance to condense a super true Qi bomb, so he had no way of dealing with the Southern Sky Gate, a peak foundation establishment expert. If it really came to that, Lin Yi could only reveal Yuzha's fatal weakness of murdering his master. But if that happened, Yuzha, the rebellious disciple, would definitely die. But whether or not Lin Yi could survive would depend on the Southern Sky Gate. Maybe the Southern Sky Gate would let him go, or maybe the Southern Sky Gate would take care of him as well. Life or death. It all depended on the other party's decision. Plus, the Southern Sky Gate would also be suspicious. Where did he get the video? Why was he there? Lin Yi's reaction wasn't slow. The moment Yuzha made his move, he made a decision. Continue pretending. Since Yuzha made his move, he just had to dodge. Unless he really had no other choice. Otherwise, for Lin Yi, if he were to use his true strength at this time and expose his identity, things would be really troublesome. Relying on his instincts, Lin Yi narrowly avoided Yu's swift and fierce sword energy, his figure appearing to be rather strained. However, after Yu's attack missed, he did not give up. He immediately raised his hand and used the 21st form of the fatal chainsword. This time, Lin Yi was forced into an extremely sorry state. Although he successfully dodged the attack once again, his right arm was scratched by the sword energy that brushed past him. It reflected a bright red bloodstain. Fortunately, he dodged fast enough and was only slightly scratched. Otherwise, his entire right arm would have been cut off. This was the awkward situation that Lin Yi was facing at the moment. It was not difficult to make the decision to continue acting, but it was extremely difficult to actually do it. If he didn't want to expose his identity in front of Yuja, he couldn't use any of the martial techniques that he used in front of him before. Frenzied Fire 8 Trigrams Palm, Frenzied Fire Fist, Butterfly Subtle Steps. These were the martial techniques that Lin Yi was most familiar with. Otherwise, he would be immediately seen through by Yuja. This was the most difficult part. Facing Yuja, a middle-stage foundational establishment stage expert, not only did Lin Yi reveal his true strength of the early-stage foundational establishment stage, he couldn't even use all of the martial techniques that he was proficient in. Falling into such a sorry state, it was easy to imagine. Fortunately, although Yuja had killing intent, he did not use his true strength. For example, if he was only using the 21st form of the fatal consecutive sword, although Lin Yi was having a hard time dealing with it, it wasn't to the point where he couldn't hold on. After 2 to 3 exchanges, he saw that although Lin Yi was doing his best to dodge and maneuver, his 21st form of the fatal chain sword still left several wounds on his body. However, Yuja's killing intent weakened a lot when his own fatal consecutive sword, 21 forms, left several wounds on his body. At least, from the performance of these few exchanges, this Lin Yi and the Lin Air he was looking for were two completely different people. Words could lie, even looks could lie, but once they really fought, especially when facing the threat of death, fighting style wouldn't lie. Even if one wanted to purposely hide their martial techniques, when facing danger, the body would subconsciously react. This was an instinct that couldn't be controlled, and the stronger the cultivator, the stronger this self-preservation ability was. This was also why the stronger the expert, the harder it was to be ambushed and killed. Because even if one numbed their will, it was very difficult to fool their self-preservation instincts. This was originally a good thing, but for the current Lin Yi, it wasn't necessarily a good thing. Because if this continued, he wouldn't be able to hold on for much longer. In reality, this was indeed the case. After just a few exchanges, Lin Yi already couldn't control the restless physical energy in his body. If Yuja persisted for a while longer, he might not be able to control himself. But at this time, Yuja suddenly stopped. "I have no grievances with you. Why do you want to kill me? Don't you know what the crime of attacking a newcomer of the welcoming pavilion is?" Lin Yi panted in a sorry state. There was an element of pretense here, but he really had a hard time pretending just now, and there were many wounds on his body. This wasn't fake. Don't talk nonsense. If you want to live, then try using your pill firebomb. I'll give you this chance. Yuja said with a cold expression, "Pill firebomb." Lin Yi was instantly shocked. As he wondered why this Yuja suddenly changed tactics, he asked in surprise, "How do you know about the pill firebomb?" "Humph, so you really know this move. Then I was right to come." Yuja's eyes lit up. After the previous probing, Lin Yi had basically been eliminated as a suspect in his heart, but he still needed to confirm it one last time. He now wanted to know if this so-called pill firebomb was the same move as the big killing weapon that Lin Air threw on Nan Tianyong's face that day. About the pill firebomb, did Kang Mingming tell you? A light flashed in Lin Yi's mind, and he suddenly asked. He didn't know if the pill firebomb move existed on Heavenly Stage Island, but in this welcoming pavilion, the most obvious person that could be connected to the pill firebomb was Kong Ming Ming. Yuzha couldn't help but be stunned. Kong Ming Ming told him that this Lin was an alchemist, and that he knew how to use the pill firebomb. This in itself wasn't strange, but this Lin directly guessed that it was Kong Ming Ming. This was a bit strange. What do you mean? Yuzha asked in a low voice. Chapter 38:67. Did that mean he was being used by Kong Ming Ming? Yuzha immediately reacted. If Kong Ming Ming had a personal grudge against Lin Yi, then he and the Southern Sky Gate might have really been used this time. There's something you might not know. Kong Ming Ming is an alchemist, and the pill firebomb has always been his specialty, Lin Yi said with an unfathomable expression. Are you telling the truth? Yuzha's expression turned cold. Kong Ming Ming had a personal grudge against Lin Yi. Kong Ming Ming knew how to make the pill firebomb, but he tricked him and the Southern Sky Gate into coming here to test Lin Yi. His intentions were obvious. Whether it's true or not, can't you tell with your abilities? Lin Yi asked calmly. I hope you're not lying. Otherwise, I believe you know better than me what will happen to you. Yuzha glanced coldly at Lin Yi, then turned around and left as if he had received some orders. Before leaving, Yuzha stopped in his tracks and turned around to say to Lin Yi, do you know why I want to kill you? Because you're very similar to the person I'm looking for, at least in some aspects. That's why you're unlucky. After saying this, Yuzha quickly disappeared from Lin Yi's sight. Immediately after, Lin Yi discovered that Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai had come looking for him. Lin Yi finally understood. No wonder Yuzha had suddenly stopped. The Southern Sky Gate must have discovered Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai, and was afraid that more newcomers would be attracted. That was why they used 1,000-mile sound transmission to inform Yuzha to stop. Boss, how are you? Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai were shocked when they saw Lin Yi's injuries. They quickly ran over and asked nervously, I'm fine. It's just some superficial wounds. No need to make a fuss. Lin Yi smiled and shook his head, but he was glad in his heart. Fortunately, his two brothers found him in time to help him out of trouble. Today was not going to be easy to pass. Who did it? Boss, should we chase after them now? Xiao Honkai could not help but feel indignant. How could a person with a personality like his just watch as his boss, Lin Yi, was injured? Even if he could not win, he still had to try. What's more, this was the welcome pavilion. The other party would at least have some scruples. Even if they weren't strong enough to fight one-on-one, if several of them attacked together, they might have a chance. There's no need. This small injury is already worth it. Lin Yi smiled mysteriously. What happened just now had been a close shave, and he'd have gotten himself killed if he'd accidentally revealed his identity, but the last few sentences he'd exchanged with you were enough to repay him. If he wasn't wrong, then Southern Sky Gate, and you would most likely turn their attention to Kong Xiaoming. The best part was that Kong Xiaoming used the pill firebomb as an excuse to draw their attention to him. He didn't know that in the end, little did he know, he had fallen into their trap. The Southern Sky Gate and Yuzha were both smart people, and smart people were extremely suspicious. Yuzha would not have placed the suspicion on Kong Ming Ming. After all, strictly speaking, Kong Ming Ming did not look like Lin Yi. However, after what happened, it was impossible for the two smart people not to suspect him. Furthermore, this guy really did know how to use the pill firebomb. Lin Yi really wanted to give Kong Ming Ming two phrases. One was to go for wool and come home shorn. The other was to be caught in one's own trap. By the way, how did you guys find your way here? Lin Yi asked as he healed himself. He turned his head to ask Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai. Although this place was not far from the newcomer's cave in the Blue Cloud Pavilion, under normal circumstances, no one would come here. Furthermore, judging from Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongsai's expressions, it was obvious that they were here to look for him. Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai looked at each other and said, "Actually, that woman told us. She asked us to come and collect your corpse. Morongjun?" Lin Yi was startled. He then remembered that when Yuzha came to look for him, although the other newcomers were in the cave and could not sense what was going on outside, Morongjun lived in a small wooden hut outside. Even the slightest disturbance would not escape her eyes. However, after what happened last night, this woman was obviously on the opposite side of him. If she allowed him to be killed by the Southern Sky Gate, and Yuzha, wouldn't that be exactly what she wanted? Although her words were not pleasant, it was obvious that she wanted Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai to help him out. What was she planning? Could it be that she still had not given up on him? Lin Yi could not help but feel confused. He could only sigh. Women were really hard to understand. They made enemies out of nowhere, but in the blink of an eye, they would help him out of trouble. It was really confusing. However, he was sure that she did not have good intentions. "Boss, do you think that woman has really taken a fancy to you?" On the way back to the cave, Xiao Honkai chuckled with a face full of curiosity and gossip. Currently, in the eyes of the Clear Cloud Pavilion's new disciples, the most eye-catching person was undoubtedly Morongjun. Each and every one of her movements affected the minds of the new disciples. Even someone like Xiao Honkai couldn't help but pay attention to her. Ever since Morongjun's appearance yesterday, although her every frown and smile was very attractive, she did not show much passion towards the newcomers. Only when she was with Lin Yi was she different. She seemed to take the initiative. If they were to find out that Beauty Morong had taken the initiative to go to Lin Yi's cave to take a bath, they would probably go crazy. Lin Yi rolled his eyes at him and curled his lips. "What do you like about me? Strength or background?" Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai were momentarily at a loss for words. Although their boss, Lin Yi, was definitely unfathomable in terms of strength and background, at least on the surface, he was not as strong as Beauty Morong. At that moment, Morongjun suddenly appeared in front of the three of them. She smiled coldly at Lin Yi and said, "I thought you didn't know how to appreciate favors. However, it seems that you do know your place. You're right. Whether it's strength or background, in my eyes, you're the same as trash. Therefore, I advise you to be more sensible and make a wise choice. This beauty's patience is not that good." "Choice?" Lin Yi raised his eyebrows. "Lady Morong, I've already made it very clear. Well water does not interfere with river water. This is my choice." Chapter 38:68. Looking at Morongjun's back, Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai looked at each other. Although Lin Yi had reminded them to keep their distance from Morongjun yesterday, they had already guessed that this woman was an enemy, not a friend. They had never thought that this day would come so soon. An expert at the peak of the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm, and a beautiful woman with an extraordinary background. This kind of enemy was very difficult to deal with. However, this was not what Lin Yi was thinking at this time. He suddenly understood why Morongjun would help him this time. The reason was very simple. She needed him to keep Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong in check. Now, among the newcomers in Blue Cloud Pavilion, Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong were one group, while Lin Yi and the others were another group. As for Morongjun, it seemed that she did not want to join any group. After her attempt to subdue Lin Yi failed, she did not directly join Meng Jueguang's group. Instead, she wanted to become the third pole that could compete with the two groups. This was the only way to explain why this woman called Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai to help her out. If something happened to her, There was no doubt that the newcomers in Blue Cloud Pavilion would be dominated by Meng Jueguang. Even with Morong Zhen's scheming, it would be difficult for her to compete with Meng Jueguang. After all, she had just arrived and had no foundation. It was possible to deal with a fool like Meng Tong, but Meng Jueguang was the eldest senior brother in charge. This position was not something she could replace. Taking refuge with him was no different from surrendering. This was not what she wanted to see. This woman wanted to control the overall situation. Now that she was not strong enough, she needed Lin Yi to distract Meng Jueguang's energy. This was the real reason why Morongzhen helped her out. This also confirmed Lin Yi's previous impression of this woman. This woman, Morongzhen, was really scheming. Otherwise, she would not have deliberately weighed the situation. After all, according to a normal woman's vengeful mentality, after becoming enemies with Lin Yi, even if her first reaction was not to kill him directly, she would definitely not help him out. It was already very open-minded of her to just stand by and watch. Only a truly shrewd person would make such a choice. This woman, Morongzhen, was truly a scheming person. It looks like the following days will not be so peaceful. Looking at Morongzhen's alluring back, Lin Yi could only helplessly shake his head. Originally, Lin Yi only needed to deal with Meng Jueguang and his gang. Especially since Meng Tong had laid low recently, no one tried to find trouble with him. Lin Yi could focus on cultivating and improving his strength. However, with the addition of this scheming woman, Morongzhen, it was unrealistic for him to be so carefree in the future. Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai exchanged glances with each other and nodded in agreement. Although they had yet to understand Morongzhen's true intentions, they could feel that the newcomers in Blue Cloud Pavilion were about to get lively. "Let's go. The challenge is about to begin." "Let's see what this woman is going to do," said Lin Yi to the two with a smile. Due to Morongzhen's participation, the situation had suddenly become complicated. Although Lin Yi was still confident that he could deal with these people, he could not afford to be too careless. Otherwise, if he was not careful, he might actually fail miserably. On the other hand, after Yu Zhe failed to test Lin Yi, he immediately returned to the Southern Heavenly Gate's side. He told the Southern Heavenly Gate everything that had just happened in full detail. Although the Southern Heavenly Gate must have seen everything from the beginning to the end, Yu Zhe was the one who had actually fought against Lin Er, while the Southern Heavenly Gate did not even know what Lin Er looked like. Therefore, Yu Zhe had the biggest say on whether or not this Lin Yi was the Lin Er they were looking for. After listening to Yu Zhe's detailed description, the Southern Heavenly Gate fell silent for a moment before saying, "Just tell me one thing. Is this Lin Yi the Lin Er we're looking for?" "Martial uncle, although he looks similar at first glance, he's actually two completely different people. During the fight, just now, I almost killed him a few times. If he really had the strength of Lin Er, he wouldn't have been able to hold himself back in the face of death," replied Yu Zhe in a deep voice. If it was said that this guy clearly had great strength, but in order to hide his identity, he would be too stupid. It was impossible for there to be such a fool in this world. If he lost his life, then what was the point of hiding? What he didn't know was that other people would fight back when faced with death, but Lin Yi had the art of dragon mastery, which allowed him to quickly recover. Even if he was beaten half to death, he would still be able to recover. Furthermore, Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongcai's sudden appearance helped Lin Yi out of his predicament. The Southern Heavenly Gate nodded slightly. His opinion was similar to Yu Zhe's. Although he had never truly interacted with Lin Er, he knew that all experts had their own pride. If this Lin Yi was really an expert who could instantly kill Nan Tianyong, then without the Southern Heavenly Gate's appearance, he would definitely not let a mere Yu Zhe act so presumptuously. Overall, this Lin Yi is just an ordinary newcomer. He's just a little stronger, but he's nowhere near Lin Air's level. Furthermore, according to what Meng Jueguang said, this guy is a poor bastard without any spiritual jades. Think about it. How could a poor bastard like him catch the attention of an old fox like Hong Zhong? Yuzha continued. Due to his previous investigation, he didn't really believe that Lin Yi and Lin Air were the same person from the beginning. However, when he heard Kong Ming mention the Pillfire Bomb, he felt that this move might really be similar to Lin Air's killer move, which was why he was still holding on to a sliver of hope. If that's the case, then we can eliminate this kid as a suspect. However, it's not like we didn't gain anything this time. Didn't this kid say that he has a grudge against Kong Ming, and that the Pillfire Bomb has always been Kong Ming's signature move? The Southern Heavenly Gate said with a dark expression. That's right. This Kong Xiaoming clearly knows how to make pellet fire bombs himself, but he's taking the initiative to please us. He's trying to divert our attention to someone unrelated to him. He's got ulterior motives. Yuzha was equally displeased, no matter if it was Yuzha or Southern Skygate. They both thought that they were smart people who could play with others in the palm of their hands. But now, they were being played like a monkey by Kong Xiaoming, a newbie from Rising Sky Pavilion. How could they be happy? One who is unaccountably solicitous is hiding evil intentions. The Southern Heavenly Gate's cold eyes flickered as he suddenly asked, Marshal Nephew, think about it carefully. Could that kid, Kong Ming, be Lin Air? Chapter 38:69. Although Kong Ming was the same as Lin Yi, and his appearance was completely different from the Lin Yi they were looking for, this alone couldn't completely eliminate the suspicion. Otherwise, they wouldn't have tried to test Lin Yi again. Putting aside his appearance, Kong Ming was more suspicious than Lin Yi in every aspect. First of all, he was a disciple of Soaring Sky Pavilion, and he had the backing of a young master like Su Lingchong. Whether it was his background or strength, he should be above Lin Yi in theory and closer to the image of Lin Yi. Secondly, if he wasn't Lin Yi, why would he rack his brains to divert the attention of the two people and pour dirty water on the irrelevant Lin Yi? If it was purely for personal revenge, why didn't he say that he knew how to use the Pillfire Bomb? If you want to know if Kong Ming knows how to use the Pillfire Bomb, that's easy. Use the same trick you used on Lin Yi on him again, and the truth will naturally come to light. Southern Sky Gate sneered. Marshal Uncle, that's not good, right? Yuzha was shocked. To be honest, he had already taken a big risk by testing Lin Yi just now. If he had been seen by Xiao Ran and Qiao Hongkai just now, he might have had to go to the law enforcement hall to turn himself in. Now, Southern Sky Gate actually wanted him to test Kong Ming again. One had to know that Kong Ming was a new deacon, and his status was much higher than Lin Yi's, an ordinary grassroots newcomer of Blue Cloud Pavilion. Behind him was young Master Su Lingchong, and once something went wrong, it wasn't something that Yuzha, a mere inner disciple of Soaring Sky Pavilion, could handle. Southern Sky Gate frowned in dissatisfaction. I will bear all the consequences for you. What are you afraid of? If you shrink your head and feet, you won't be able to achieve anything. Yuzha couldn't help falling into a dilemma. Although Southern Sky Gate's words were domineering, the other side was still young Master Su's subordinate. If they really angered young Master Su and caused the situation to escalate, not to mention Southern Sky Gate, even the head of the Nan clan's 3 heroes, Nan Tianba, might not be able to handle it. At that time, the first one to suffer would definitely be him, Yuzha. However, Yuzha was coveting the Southern Sky Gate's lesser phaseless magic art, and he was counting on the Southern Sky Gate to help him find Lin Air. Therefore, he couldn't wait to please the Southern Sky Gate. So why would he dare to go against their wishes? If he were to test Kong Xiaoming, then he would be putting himself in danger. But if he were to go against Southern Sky Gate's will, then it would make Southern Sky Gate feel bad for him. Southern Sky Gate was a smart and sensitive person. After that, it would be very difficult to correct it. At that time, he would probably not be able to rely on the minor phaseless God technique anymore. At this time, Yuzha was really in a dilemma. Seeing Yuzha cowering, Southern Sky Gate was about to reprimand him, but at that moment they suddenly heard a commotion from the welcoming pavilion. From the sound of it, the newcomer challenge competition had begun. Yuzha instantly found a life-saving straw and hurriedly said, "Marshal Uncle, look, their newcomer challenge competition has begun. Even if the disciples want to test them, they have to wait until they finish. They can't attack Kong Ming Ming in front of everyone. Don't you think so?" If he really made a move on Kong Xiaoming during the newcomers challenge, then forget about Yuzha. Even if it was the Southern Sky Gate who made a move, he wouldn't be able to handle it. They would definitely be beaten into the dust by the enforcement hall. This reason was impeccable. Southern Sky Gate could only nod and say, "That's good. After they finish the competition, you can find a chance to test him. We can ignore everything else for now, but whether or not Kong Ming Ming knows how to use the pill firebomb, we have to figure it out today. Do you understand what I mean?" Yuzha hurriedly nodded. Disciple understands. Southern Sky Gate's meaning was very clear. If Kong Ming Ming knew how to use the pill firebomb, then from his actions of trying to divert the two's attention, the possibility of him being Lin Air was definitely not small. To Southern Sky Gate, Lin Air could be anyone in the welcoming pavilion. With Southern Sky Gate's power, they could easily crush anyone in the welcoming pavilion. However, if it was Kong Ming Ming, who Su Lingchong had personally admitted to being his subordinate, once young Master Su was involved, then the situation would become complicated. Under the background of Su Lingchong's covetous eyes, wanting to snatch the position of eldest senior brother of the Soaring Sky Pavilion, anything that could possibly involve young Master Su was no longer a small matter in the eyes of Southern Sky Gate. If they were the slightest bit careless, then it could become the fuse of an all-out war with young Master Su. Southern Sky Gate wasn't feeling guilty about this. It was just that up until now, he was far from being prepared to deal with it. However, from Yuzha's point of view, although he was relieved after hearing Southern Sky Gate's orders, he was still a little worried. The newcomer competition could only help him by some time. Once the newcomer competition ended, even if he didn't want to jump into this pit, Southern Sky Gate would definitely force him to. There was no helping it. This was the sorrow of being a follower. Sometimes he would have to be the cannon fodder. Let's go take a look at that brat Kong Ming Ming." Southern Sky Gate strode towards the newcomer arena of the Soaring Sky Pavilion. Even if he couldn't let Yuzha directly test him, it was still a good idea to use the newcomer competition as an opportunity to observe him. Who knows, there might be some unexpected gains. Yes. Yuzha followed behind Southern Sky Gate with complicated thoughts. At this moment, he was thinking about a problem. When the newcomer competition ended, what excuse could he use to continue pushing it away? Even though he knew it was a very risky pit for a smart person like him, even if Southern Sky Gate forced him to, he definitely wouldn't jump into it easily. However, Yuzha never expected that this difficult problem that he couldn't solve even after racking his brain would be solved by Kong Ming Ming of his own accord. The reason was simple. Kong Ming Ming, in the following newcomer competition, was forced to use the pill fire bomb. There were so many newcomers in the Soaring Sky Pavilion. Although they all expressed their willingness to take care of Kong Ming Ming after receiving young Master Su's orders, the newcomers who were able to enter the Soaring Sky Pavilion all had a decent background. Even if they weren't as arrogant as Su Lingchong, they were still the second generation. None of them were truly docile. Even among the newcomers in the Blue Cloud Pavilion, Lin Yi was an anomaly. The newcomers in the Soaring Sky Pavilion were even more confident. Naturally, there were many troublesome newcomers who were dissatisfied with young Master Su's arrangements. Of course, not all newcomers with random backgrounds dared to ignore young Master Su's tyranny. Therefore, regardless of how they felt in their hearts, for the past 2 months, most of the newcomers in the Soaring Sky Pavilion were quite cooperative with young Master Su's orders on the surface. Chapter 3870. The newcomer who challenged Kong Ming this time was called Yuda. Although his background was not very powerful, with the help of the elders in his family, he had just found a powerful backer. He was the nephew of the second elder of Soaring Sky Pavilion. Although this young master was not as powerful as Su Lingchong, the grandson of the third elder of Soaring Sky Pavilion, he was still powerful enough. He was definitely not afraid of Su Lingchong. As a result, the dissatisfaction that Yuda had suppressed in his heart for more than 2 months finally burst out in an instant. To be honest, Kong Xiaoming was just a newbie from the common world. His strength wasn't even close to the word strong. If it wasn't for Su Lingchong looking after him, he would have been nothing more than a piece of shit in the eyes of the newbies from Soaring Pavilion. They were already being generous by not stepping on him, but because of young Master Su, they had to pinch their noses and lift up Kong Ming. They had to watch this scum of the secular world ride on their heads and act like a tyrant. What kind of **T feeling was this? Aggrieved. After holding back for more than 2 months, Yuda finally found the confidence to openly confront Su Lingchong. He could challenge Kong Ming in the newcomer challenge without any fear. This was not only to vent his anger, but more importantly, it was also to express goodwill to the nephew of the second elder. It should be known that Su Lingchong was extremely ambitious in the circle of the second generation of the Soaring Sky Pavilion, and many second-generation young masters were quite dissatisfied with him, and one of them was the nephew of the second elder. Now, that Yuda had taken the initiative to challenge Kong Ming, Su Lingchong's little brother, it was a show of loyalty. Once he succeeded, he would definitely be appreciated more in the future. As for strength, although he was still at the peak of heaven stage, taking the initiative to challenge Kong Ming, a master at the early stage of foundation establishment, seemed to be courting death, but it was not impossible because Kong Ming was an alchemist who relied on constantly taking pills to barely reach the early stage of foundation establishment. One could imagine how weak they were. Even a heaven stage great perfection expert like Yuda might not necessarily have no chance of winning. Think about it, in a highly anticipated event like the Newcomer Challenge competition, if the weak could defeat the strong and step on Kong Ming, the early stage of the foundation establishment realm, for the first time in history, how big of a sensation would it cause? Not only would he be able to vent his anger, but he would also be able to gain face for his new backer. More importantly, it was very likely that he would be able to leave an impression on the higher-ups of Soaring Sky Pavilion. What a great harvest this was! If Yuda still did not dare to stand up and challenge Kong Ming, then he would really be a newcomer of Soaring Sky Pavilion. Moreover, it wasn't as if he didn't have a trump card. Previously, he had taken a golden elixir. In this way, he could have the strength of an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator for a short period of time. He was even more confident in dealing with Kong Ming. When he saw Yuda standing up with a sneer and taking the initiative to challenge him, Kong Ming was completely stunned. It was just as Yuda had thought. Although he was an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator, if he really wanted to fight to the death, he might not be able to defeat a heaven-stage great perfection expert. If he lost to Yuda, the heaven-stage great perfection expert, then Kong Ming, would really be nailed to the pillar of shame of Soaring Sky Pavilion. People would not care whether you were an alchemist or not. They would only pay attention to one thing. You, an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator, actually couldn't defeat a heaven stage great perfection expert. Not only would Kong Ming Ming lose face, but he would also lose face. Even Su Ling Chong, the backer behind him, would lose face. At that time, it would be hard to say whether young Master Su would still take care of him like now. So this time, when faced with Shi Yuda's public provocation, Kong Ming Ming didn't dare to fail no matter what. Otherwise, if he lost young Master Su's care, who knew how miserable he would be in the future? What made Kong Ming Ming helpless was that even if he was an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator facing an aggressive, heaven-stage great perfection expert, he really didn't have any confidence in winning. If he really let the opponent seize the initiative in the arena, even if he had an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator's true chi, there was still a possibility that he would be suffocated to death in the end. The only killing move he was confident in was only one move, the pill fire bomb. The power of the pill fire bomb was needless to say. If he really forced it out, not to mention the opponent was a mere heaven-stage great perfection expert, even an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator of the same level would be killed in one move. However, the biggest flaw was that this move needed time to accumulate power, and the greater the power, the longer the time needed to accumulate power in advance. Normally, Shi Yuda wouldn't give Kong Ming Ming such a chance at all. However, for a cunning person like Kong Ming Ming, it was really easy for him to find an excuse to delay time. I'm a newcomer deacon. If I directly accept the challenge and get injured, it is very likely that it will affect my duty to record and publicize the newcomer's points. This is an irresponsible behavior, so I need some time to find someone to hand over the work, just in case. This was the reason given by Kong Ming Ming. It was dignified and impeccable. Shi Yuda didn't expect that Kong Ming Ming would secretly take the opportunity to accumulate a big move. When both sides walked into the arena, Kong Ming Ming didn't say anything and threw a pill fire bomb. Shi Yuda was directly blown up on the spot. The battle ended in an instant, and he ate his golden core for nothing. Seeing Kong Ming Ming walk off the arena with a smug face, everyone present was shocked. Before this, they thought that Kong Ming Ming was a soft persimmon that relied on young Master Su to get his position, but they didn't expect him to be such a ruthless character. To deal with a mere heaven-stage great perfection, he actually used such a big killer move. He almost blew up the entire arena that had been reinforced with arrays. What kind of hatred did he have? All of a sudden, everyone looked at Kong Xiaoming with awe that they had never felt before. It made Kong Xiaoming feel great. All along, although he had been acting like a tyrant in front of the Soaring Sky Pavilion's newcomers, it was all because of Su Lingchong's power. They dared not say anything even though they were angry. But today he had defeated the blind Shi Yuda with one move, and he even used a pill firebomb, which was an extremely deterrent move. This time, Kong Ming Ming finally experienced what it felt like to be the #1 newcomer in the Soaring Sky Pavilion. It felt great. However, Kong Ming Ming never expected that although his pill firebomb had indeed shocked the Soaring Sky Pavilion's newcomers, it also fell into the eyes of Southern Sky Gate. And Yuzha! That's right. The move that Lin Er used to kill Master was this pill firebomb. Yuzha was overjoyed when he saw this and quickly pointed it out to Southern Sky Gate. Chapter 3871. When Lin Yi used the Super Chi Bomb against Nan Tianyong, it was very sudden, and Yuzha was quite far away, so he couldn't see the details clearly. He could only vaguely feel the shocking power. At first glance, the feeling was quite similar to when Kong Ming Ming used the pill firebomb. Are you sure? Southern Sky Gate frowned. Disciple is sure. Yuzha said firmly. Kong Ming Ming's pill firebomb was very similar to the move he had seen before. Even if there was a slight difference, he would still insist on it to prevent Southern Sky Gate from forcing him to test the others. It was very risky to do this kind of thing too often. Southern Sky Gate did not doubt Yuja's words when he saw how certain Yuja was. His eyes were filled with anger. So, this kid Kong Ming Ming is most likely that Lin heir? How dare he fool me? Did he eat the guts of a leopard and think that I won't kill him? Disciple can't say that I'm 100% sure, but from this pill firebomb and the way this kid deliberately diverted our attention, there's an 80% chance he is. Yuja was also filled with anger. No matter what, he was an inner disciple of the Soaring Sky Pavilion, but he was fooled by a mere newcomer like Kong Ming Ming. He could not take it anymore. Boom. Before Yuja finished speaking, a huge rock beside Southern Sky Gate instantly turned into powder, attracting the attention of the newcomers. They pointed at it and discussed it. This boulder was smashed by the Southern Sky Gate in a fit of rage. He wanted nothing more than to tear Kong Xiaoming to pieces in front of everyone, but he wasn't a brainless idiot. No matter how angry he was, he knew that he couldn't attack Kong Xiaoming in front of everyone, so he could only vent his anger on the boulder. Being stared at by Southern Sky Gate, and Yuja, even in broad daylight with so many people around, Kong Ming Ming could not help but feel a chill down his spine. He was puzzled. What's wrong with these two? Why aren't you hurrying over to kill Lin Yi? Why are you glaring at me like a fiend? Under everyone's gaze, Kong Ming Ming had no choice but to bite the bullet and walk over. He took the initiative to ask, "Eldest senior brother, what can I do for you?" The Southern Sky Gate was the eldest senior brother who was in charge of the Soaring Sky Pavilion. In theory, every disciple of the Soaring Sky Pavilion, including the new disciples, had to call him eldest senior brother. Although Kong Ming Ming was trying to raise his status by calling him eldest senior brother, it was not wrong. The Southern Heavenly Gate looked at him coldly and said expressionlessly, "I've already seen Lin Yi. This time, I really have to thank Deacon Kong for your guidance. Don't worry, I will keep it in mind, and will definitely repay you in the future." Kong Ming Ming thought that the two of them had already killed Lin Yi. He was overjoyed. "You flatter me. It's my duty to serve eldest senior brother. I don't need anything in return. Eldest senior brother, you're too kind." He thought that the repayment that the Southern Sky Gate mentioned would be something good. At this moment, his heart was filled with anticipation. After all, the Southern Sky Gate was the eldest senior brother who was in charge of the Soaring Sky Pavilion. His actions would definitely not be small. Little did he know that the repayment that the Southern Sky Gate mentioned was completely different from what he had in mind. "Don't worry, I won't be courteous." The Southern Sky Gate smiled coldly and left with Yuja. Watching the two of them leave, Kong Ming Ming was overjoyed, but he couldn't help but feel confused. Why did the two of them look so cold when they looked at me? "Martial uncle, what should we do next?" Yuja couldn't help but ask. Although they had locked onto Kong Ming Ming as a suspect, logically speaking, the target was very clear. What they should do next was also very clear. If it was someone else, they would have captured the person without hesitation. However, this person was Su Lingchong's underling. Even the Southern Sky Gate didn't dare to act recklessly. The Southern Heavenly Gate suddenly stopped in his tracks and looked Yuja up and down with a cold expression. Only when Yuja was scared out of his wits did he say, "Martial nephew, how did you end up in conflict with Second Lin?" The Southern Sky Gate wasn't clear about the conflict between Yuja and Second Lin. He only knew that Nan Tianyong was killed by Second Lin because he wanted to avenge his disciple. However, he had never asked about the cause. Yuja hesitated for a moment, then answered vaguely, "Martial uncle, disciple first started a conflict with Second Lin because he competed to buy an item from the Hong Merchant Guild. Unless it was absolutely necessary, Yuzha would never let the Southern Sky Gate know about the Star Ink Stone. After all, the Southern Sky Gate was an expert at the peak of the Foundation establishment realm and was about to break through to the Golden Core realm. Therefore, the Star Ink Stone was even more attractive to him than to Yuzha. Once the Southern Sky Gate knew about the existence of the Star Ink Stone, then even if they could take it back from Second Lin, Yuzha wouldn't have a share. Yuzha obviously wouldn't do something as stupid as making a wedding dress for someone else. What is it? The Southern Sky Gate wasn't easy to deal with. It wasn't easy for Yuzha to trick him. He instantly realized the key point. Yuzha's heart tightened, but he forced himself to remain calm and said, "It's just a normal treasure used to aid in cultivation. It's not very valuable, but it's not very common." Normal treasure? The Southern Sky Gate frowned, then asked suspiciously, "Is it really just a normal treasure?" Then if Kong Ming Ming really is Second Lin, as Su Lingchong's underling, and with such a hidden strength, would he compete with you for a mere normal treasure? Yuzha was speechless. He had made up a lie in a moment of desperation, but he forgot that the person in front of him was also extremely shrewd. He was immediately caught onto the loophole. Seeing that Yuzha was stuttering, the Southern Sky Gate's expression instantly became even colder. He said in a deep voice, "I thought about it carefully just now. This Kong Ming Ming was sent by Su Lingchong to find him for help, and he's also Su Lingchong's underling. If he really is Second Lin, I suspect that Su Lingchong might be behind this." The Southern Sky Gate paused, looked at the somewhat flustered Yuzha, and his tone became unprecedentedly stern. "Now that Su Lingchong is eyeing my position as the big senior brother, I definitely won't let go of any possible hidden dangers. If necessary, even if it's against Marshal Nephew, I don't mind using some sinister methods. Marshal Nephew, you should have heard from your master that I'm proficient in the small phaseless technique, and I've also fused some of those evil martial skills, so I know a soul-searching technique that can directly read other people's memories, right?" Chapter 3872. Soul-Searching Art. Yuzha had indeed heard about it from his chief master, Nan Tianyong, who had died in his hands. It was a secret art that the Southern Heaven Gate had learned when he was still in the enforcement hall. It allowed him to read the memories of others. In front of him, there were no secrets to speak of. Of course, this secret art could only be used when the opponent had lost the ability to resist, and the opponent's divine sense had to be weaker than the user's. Once used, the target's divine sense would collapse. Even if they were lucky enough not to die, they would become a muddle-headed fool. Yuzha knew that if he continued to lie like this, Southern Sky Gate might actually attack him out of anger. At that time, forget about getting the Star Ink Stone and becoming the strongest Golden Core expert. He might not even be able to live past today. Even if he was lucky, he would at most become a fool. What was there to look forward to? At that moment, Yuzha was sweating profusely. Although he wanted to fabricate another lie and continue to hide the secret of the Star Ink Stone under the pressure of Southern Sky Gate, even a sly person like Yuzha's mind was blank. It was easy to make up a lie, but to make it so perfect that even the Southern Sky Gate couldn't find any flaws in it was impossible in a short period of time. Once the Southern Sky Gate saw through even the slightest flaw, Yuzha would be done for today. With his strength, there was no way he could escape the Southern Sky Gate's grasp. At that moment, Yuzha was so regretful that his intestines turned green. He wanted to slap himself 18 times. What kind of person was Southern Sky Gate? Why did he want to make use of him? Wasn't he being blinded by his own greed? Now, not only did he not get any benefits, he even got himself into trouble. Have you made up your mind? If you don't want to say it, then don't blame me for not considering our relationship. Southern Sky Gate was about to attack. Since there was no one around, there was nothing to worry about. Yuzha jumped in fright and didn't dare to hesitate anymore. He hurriedly said, "Martial uncle, please wait. It's not that I'm trying to hide it. It's just that this is a long story, and I'm afraid of wasting Martial uncle's time. Since Martial uncle wants to hear it, then I won't hide anything." "Okay, speak." Southern Sky Gate's expression softened a little. Words could lie, but the soul-searching technique would never. If it were not for the fact that the secret technique of soul-searching technique would also cause damage to one's divine sense, making it inadvisable to use it frequently, only then would he care about Yuzha's little life. He would probably have made a move a long time ago, but Yuzha didn't know that his little life was more important. In the end, he had no choice but to tell the entire story to the Southern Heavenly Gate. He even told them about the Starring Stone, leaving out the fact that Nan Tianyong had died at his hands. With the Starring Stone as a distraction, the Southern Sky Gate didn't care about such a small matter. After hearing the usage of the Starring Stone, the eyes of this high and mighty soaring sky pavilion steward instantly lit up. "Staring Stone, apprentice nephew, are you certain that this item can assist in breaking through to the Golden Core stage? Let cultivators become the strongest Golden Core experts." The Southern Sky Gate's tone was a little anxious. Although he was far above Yuzha in terms of seniority and experience, he wasn't like Yuzha, who had holed up in a place like the library for 3 whole years and read almost all the ancient texts. It wasn't strange that he didn't know the uses of Starring Stone. Reporting to Martial Uncle, "Disciple can't guarantee whether or not it really has such a miraculous effect. But the ancient texts did record it this way." Although Yuzha's heart was bleeding, he still replied respectfully on the surface. Since he had already revealed the information about the Starring Stone, then the Starring Stone that he had been thinking about had nothing to do with him anymore. Therefore, Yuzha decided that he had to curry favor with the Southern Sky Gate. Even if he couldn't dream about the Starring Stone, he had to at least get the minor phaseless god technique from him. Otherwise, he would really suffer a great loss. The ancient texts in the library are all well documented. Since it's all recorded like this, then there shouldn't be too many discrepancies. To be able to let someone become the strongest Golden Core expert, it's simply a rare treasure. Even with the shrewdness of the Southern Sky Gate, he couldn't hide the greed on his face. There was no cultivator under the Golden Core stage who wouldn't be moved by something like Starring Stone. No matter how deep their background was, they wouldn't be an exception. After a moment of excitement, the Southern Sky Gate suddenly slapped his head and said, "That's right. Originally, I wasn't sure if this matter had anything to do with Su Lingchong, but now that the Starring Stone is involved, everything can be explained." Disciple is slow-witted. Please enlighten me, Martial Uncle." Yuzha was still immersed in the sadness of not being able to obtain the Starring Stone, so he didn't think about this at all. "Martial nephew, think about it. You and I want the Starring Stone, and that second Lin wants it. Don't tell me that young Master Su Lingchong doesn't want it." The Southern Sky Gate asked. "Of course he wants it. Whoever obtains, it will have the chance to become the strongest Golden Core expert." Yuzha nodded his head resolutely. A treasure like the Starring Stone was an existence that reigned above all factions and backgrounds. Even a second-generation cultivator with a deep background wouldn't be able to resist its temptation. Su Lingchong was naturally not an exception. Therefore, this indirectly proves that Kong Mingming is second Lin. I suspect that Kong Mingming's stealing of the Starring Stone was Su Lingchong's instigation. This is the only reason that can explain why the two of them teamed up to deceive us. The Southern Sky Gate said through clenched teeth, "Martial Uncle is wise." Yuzha flattered without another word. He couldn't be bothered to figure out whether or not the Southern Sky Gate's speculation was reasonable. The only thing he had to do now was to curry favor with the Southern Sky Gate. No wonder Su Lingchong dared to openly challenge me today. It turns out that after obtaining the Star Ink Stone, he doesn't place me in his eyes anymore. The Southern Sky Gate said through clenched teeth. However, he immediately thought back to the day when he visited Shanghai Tianhua. Shangguan Laner's reaction seemed to be purposely helping to conceal second Lin's identity. Moreover, the matter of Su Lingchong courting Shangguan Laner was known to everyone in the Soaring Sky Pavilion. The Southern Sky Gate couldn't help but guess. Could it be that Shangguan Laner was involved as well? Could it be that Su Lingchong obtained the Star Ink Stone in order to curry favor with Shangguan Laner? This possibility wasn't impossible because in a few days it would be Shangguan Laner's birthday. It was very likely that Su Lingchong would use the Star Ink Stone as a present to curry favor with the Shangguan Laner. Although the Star Ink Stone was rare, if he could use it to become the grandson-in-law of Shanghai Tianhua, one Star Ink Stone was definitely not a loss. Chapter 3873. Thinking of this, Southern Sky Gate felt a headache. The situation was getting more and more complicated. Not only was young Master Su Lingchong involved, but even Miss Shangguan was involved. What should he do? It was true that Southern Sky Gate was the senior brother in charge of the Soaring Sky Pavilion, but facing Su Lingchong alone was already stressful enough. If Miss Shangguan, who had an even fiercer background, was involved, he had no chance of winning. That way, if he dared to make a move on Kong Mingming, not only would he provoke Su Lingchong, he would also provoke Miss Shangguan, and might even provoke the big shots behind these two. If things were to develop to this point, not to mention Southern Sky Gate, even if the leader of the Nan family's three heroes, Nan Tianba, came back, he would be scared **less. Even if their uncle, Nantian Aurora, who was far away on Middle Island, appeared, it would still be useless. Their uncle, Nantian Aurora, was one of the most prosperous figures in the Nan clan's middle generation. Not only was he powerful, but he was also the chancellor of the Heaven Stage Islands Cultivators Academy. Be it his status or his influence, he was by no means insignificant. Unfortunately, this was the North Island's three great pavilions. Even if Nantian Aurora had some influence on Middle Island, he was too far away. Even if he stretched out his hand, people like Shanghai Tianhua, who were at the top of the North Island, would not listen to him. The situation was getting more and more complicated. With so many important people involved, even Southern Sky Gate couldn't help but lose his mind. At least, before boss Nan Tianba returned, he wouldn't dare to act rashly. The water in this matter was too deep. Although his title as the first senior brother of the Soaring Sky Pavilion steward was awe-inspiring, it was not useful at all. Let's go back first. When boss returns in 2 days, we'll discuss countermeasures. Southern Sky Gate frowned and pondered for a moment. In the end, he decided to bide his time. Southern Sky Gate, and you shall return to the cave with a belly full of thoughts. On the other hand, Lin Yi, after framing Kong Mingming, immediately appeared at the newcomer challenge. However, seeing a powerful rookie like Lin Yi, who had always shown off, appear covered in blood, the rookies of Blue Cloud Pavilion were shocked. Even Meng Jueguang could not help but feel dazed. **CK, what kind of big shot did this kid offend? God is blind. Why hasn't he been beaten to death even though he's injured to this extent? Meng Jueguang exclaimed in pity. Normally, when a new disciple was injured, his first reaction as a steward would be to report it to the higher-ups and then spare no effort to find the culprit. But now, he was too lazy to even go through this superficial formality. His attitude towards Lin was clear at a glance. Beside him, Meng Tong gloated and said, "Ninth cousin, do you think it's possible that this kid went to harass Beauty Morong and got beaten up by her?" Looking at all the rookies of Blue Cloud Pavilion, including the steward, Meng Jueguang, apart from Lin Yi and a few others, all of them were drooling over the seductive Beauty Morongzhen. Morongzhen's special treatment of Lin Yi made them envious, especially people like Meng Tong, people who wished they could kneel down under Morongzhen's skirt and lick her toes. They were even more envious and jealous of Lin Yi. Now that they saw Lin Yi injured, they could not help but think in that direction. They could not help but think in that direction. He wasn't just spouting nonsense. Last night, Morongzhen went to look for Lin Yi. Although it was already late at night, Morongzhen was still living in a small wooden hut in an open space. His every move was being watched by the newcomers, so it was almost impossible for this kind of thing to escape the eyes and ears of those with ulterior motives. Naturally, Meng Tong was one of them. Although he didn't know what exactly had happened, he didn't care. However, it was certain that Morongzhen and Lin Yi parted on bad terms. As for Lin Yi, everyone knew that he was a lecher. Although he pretended to be serious, it was hard to say how dirty he was, with his strength in the early stage of the building foundation realm. If he really angered Morongzhen, who was at the peak of the early stage of the building foundation realm, he would be lucky if he was beaten up. It would not be too much for him to be killed directly. "You're saying it was Morongzhen's doing?" Meng Jueguang observed Morongzhen and Lin Yi with a playful expression. He realized that the relationship between the two of them was indeed not good. There seemed to be a faint sense of wariness and hostility between them. Meng Tong chuckled coldly. "Ninth cousin, think about it. Out of all the newbies on our side, there's no one other than Miss Morong who could make Lin Yi suffer so much." "That's true, since Southern Sky Gate and you, Zhe, were very careful to keep it a secret." Meng Jueguang did not think in that direction. There was only one question he was most concerned about at the moment, and that was Morongzhen's stance. Before Morongzhen came, it was already quite difficult for him to face Lin Yi and his gang alone. Especially recently, Meng Tong had been holding back on purpose, and Lin Yi and his gang had completely defeated him. He had almost lost his face as the senior brother in charge. All he could do was to comfort himself with one sentence: "A little impatience will spoil the great plan." Now, before Lin Yi's side was settled, another troublesome Morongzhen, who was no less difficult to deal with than Lin Yi, Meng Jueguang, had been worried for the whole night. After all, judging from Morongzhen's behavior in the beginning, she seemed to have a good impression of Lin Yi. Lin Yi and his gang were already too much for Meng Jueguang to handle. If Morongzhen, who was at the peak of the early stage of the foundation building realm, were they going to be able to handle it? However, after seeing the subtle conflict between the two, Meng Jueguang finally felt relieved. As long as Morongzhen did not side with Lin Yi, things would be easier to handle. Morongzhen was only a woman. Even if her strength was not bad, she had no background as she had just arrived. No matter how cunning she was in Meng Jueguang's eyes, it was impossible for her to stand on her own. She only had two choices: either side with Lin Yi or side with Meng Jueguang. Now, since Morongzhen was not on good terms with Lin Yi, she could only side with Meng Jueguang. This woman can actually be considered a rare stunner. Meng Jueguang pinched his chin and stared greedily at Morongzhen's enchanting figure. He could not stop praising her. In the 3 pavilions of the North Island, female cultivators were rare to begin with, and one as beautiful as Morongzhen was even rarer. Generally speaking, even if there was one, it was the exclusive property of young masters like Su Lingchong. It was impossible for a low-level steward like Meng Jueguang to benefit from it. This time, Meng Jueguang knew his chance had come. Morongzhen was not a chaste woman. Once she was forced to side with him, she would not be unreasonable. It was time to have a good time. Chapter 3874. Just as Meng Jueguang had expected, Morongzhen did not show any displeasure when he sensed his burning gaze. Instead, he licked his lips seductively and winked at Meng Jueguang. In an instant, Meng Jueguang's entire body went limp. If it wasn't for the rookie challenge being held in such a public setting, he probably would have dragged this coquettish woman into the cave abode to have a 300 round of sex. Meng Tong curled his lips in jealousy. Although Meng Jueguang was his backer, when it came to women, even his father had to step aside. Of course, with his current strength, he could not escape from Meng Jueguang's protection. No matter how dissatisfied he was, he could only hold it in for the time being. Unexpectedly, Meng Jueguang quickly recovered from his captivation and returned to normal as he said, "You really are a hussy, but if you want to obtain my approval, you're still far from it." No matter how much he coveted Morongzhen, Meng Jueguang was not as simple-minded as Meng Tong. He could not make him bow down to her with just one look. If Morongzhen did not take any action, then even if she took the initiative to offer herself, Meng Jueguang would only be putting on a show. He would not treat her as one of his own. The action that Meng Jueguang wanted to see was very simple. He wanted Morongzhen to stand up and deal with Lin Yi in front of everyone. That was the real proof of loyalty. This newcomer challenge competition was Morongzhen's first official appearance since she came to the Welcome Pavilion. Only through her actual actions could one truly guess her stance. Apart from that, all the flowery words were useless. Not only Meng Jueguang, but Lin Yi was also staring at Morongzhen's actions, trying to figure out her real intentions. This woman was an expert at the peak of the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm. In other words, apart from Lin Yi himself, the rest of the Blue Cloud Pavilion newcomers, including Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai, were all at the same level. They were far from being her opponents. This was a variable that could break the balance of the rookies in Blue Cloud Pavilion. If this woman really wanted to do something, even if Lin Yi could handle it, his subordinates, Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai, would not be able to handle it. A moment later, under everyone's gaze, Morongzhen, the newcomer who had just arrived, was the first to walk onto the ring. She said in a clear and charming voice, "Sir Judge, I, Morongzhen from cave number 16 at the foot of the mountain, challenge Cha Wu from cave number 15 at the foot of the mountain." As soon as he said that, everyone present was stunned, and Cha Wu, who was the one being challenged, instantly turned as black as the bottom of a pot. I've already been sent to the most dilapidated and worn-out cave abode, number 15 at the foot of the mountain, and that's not enough. Now, a freaking Morongzhen came and called me out as soon as he arrived. You're a freaking expert at the peak of the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm. Beautiful. Cha Wu couldn't help but want to roar in front of everyone. Unfortunately, he didn't have the guts. After hearing these words, he could only weakly walk onto the stage and directly admit defeat. None of them dared to challenge Morongzhen, an expert at the peak of the early stage of the foundation building realm. Cha Wu's fate was to pay a little challenge points and hand over the number 15 cave residence at the foot of the mountain, which he thought was already the worst, and move to an even worse wooden house. As a result, his negative score in the first 4 rounds of the newcomer exam was already a foregone conclusion. There was no way to escape. Unexpectedly, before Morongzhen got off the stage, he took the initiative to suggest, "Little brother, if you don't mind, we are only exchanging rankings, and you can continue to live in the number 15 immortal cave at the foot of the mountain. How about it?" Cha Wu was instantly stunned. Everyone else looked confused as well. Morongzhen covered her mouth and smiled. she said in a coquettish voice that made one's scalp tingle. I'm a neat freak. I don't want to live in a dirty cave residence. Instead, I prefer the wooden house that everyone built for me. That's great. Thank you, Ms. Moron. Cha Wu immediately expressed his gratitude after he came to his senses. Although the number 15 cave residence at the foot of the mountain was the worst cave in the Welcome Pavilion, it was not worthy of an expert like Morongzhen's attention. However, for a lowly person like him, who was at the bottom of the Blue Cloud Pavilion's newcomers, no matter how bad the spiritual energy in the worst cave residence was, it was still much better than the wooden house outside. Morongzhen flashed a charming smile, then walked down the arena while swaying her hips. While Morongzhen was enjoying the admiration of the Blue Cloud Pavilion's newcomers, Lin Yi and Meng Jueguang shook their heads at the same time. They did not understand the meaning behind Morongzhen's actions. During the newcomers' challenge round, one had to fight from the last abode all the way up. This was the best strategy to obtain as many challenge points as possible. It would not be strange for anyone else to do so, but it was strange for Morongzhen to do so. She had joined the class midway and was already a peak early-stage foundation establishment expert. Furthermore, she had the background of an elder of the Soaring Pavilion. Even if she were to stay in the Blue Cloud Pavilion in the future, she would not have to worry about not having a backer. In theory, there was no need for her to pay too much attention to the newcomer assessment, which was already halfway through. There was no need for her to start from the last cave residence. According to Lin Yi and Meng Jueguang's conjecture, Morongzhen's appearance today was to ensure that she would be able to survive here in the future. It was highly likely that she would use her actions to make her stand clear. For example, she could challenge either Xiao Ran or Xiao Hongkai. She could also directly challenge Lin Yi. Only then would Meng Jueguang feel her value. Of course, there were other possibilities as well. For example, she could challenge Meng Tong. Even though this would make Meng Jueguang see her as an enemy, it was also a way to make her presence known. Because of Lin Yi's group, even Meng Jueguang could not do anything to her. However, Morongzhen did not choose any of the above. Instead, she chose a method that nobody expected. She chose to challenge Cha Wu, who was in the 15th cave. Therefore, no matter Lin Yi or Meng Jueguang, they could not understand what this woman was planning. To them, challenging Cha Wu was a completely meaningless move for Morongzhen. Even if she did not do anything, there was no need for her to do anything unnecessary and arouse suspicion. Or, in other words, Morongzhen's goal was to make Lin Yi and Meng Jueguang doubt her, which would make them hesitate. This was not impossible. Even though Morongzhen had already fallen out with Lin Yi, if she wanted to become the third pole of the tripod, she could not directly side with Meng Jueguang. Otherwise, she would directly go against Lin Yi. If she was misunderstood by Lin Yi and the two of them fought to the death, then she could only become Meng Jueguang's subordinate and accomplice. She wanted to make her presence known, make Meng Jueguang feel like he was getting closer to him, and at the same time, not make Lin Yi misunderstand her. Throughout this process, she wanted to establish her position in front of the rookies in Blue Cloud Pavilion. This was Morongzhen's true intention. As for the next few rounds of the rookies' challenge, everything went according to Morongzhen's plan. She did not fight against any of the core members of Lin Yi and Meng Jueguang. She only challenged the caves one by one. Chapter 3875. This woman isn't as simple as she seems. Lin Yi had completely understood Morongzhen's plan. He believed that Meng Jueguang was doing the same. However, even though they knew this, there was nothing they could do to Morongzhen. They could only watch as Morongzhen became the third-level existence that everyone looked up to, yet they could not do anything about it. Otherwise, if Murongzhen decided to side with the slightest sign of trouble, wouldn't that be asking for trouble? They finally realized that Murongzhen was planning something that no one could stop. Furthermore, due to the rules of the newcomer challenge, they had no way of stopping her. They could only watch as the woman slowly established her foundation and spread her wings. However, the good news for Lin Yi was that he only had two subordinates, Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai. With Lin Yi's order, it would not be easy for Murongzhen to seduce them. On the other hand, Meng Jueguang's side was different. His subordinates were not very loyal. Furthermore, everyone, including Meng Tong, was drooling over the beauty Murongzhen. As Murongzhen slowly established her position, it was very likely that these people would be swayed by the wind. Due to being suppressed by Lin Yi and his group, Meng Jueguang's control over the newcomers had dropped to a freezing point. Even if these people did not dare to betray him openly, if Murongzhen were to give them a flirtatious look, or even give them some benefits, it was believed that not many people would refuse to flirt with the beauty Murongzhen. Murongzhen's brilliance was that even if Meng Jueguang knew that she was trying to poach him, he could only endure it for the time being, in order not to make the situation worse, in order not to force Murongzhen to side with Lin Yi. While Murongzhen was stirring up a storm in the newcomer welcoming pavilion Southern Sky Gate, and Yu Zhe, who were far away in the soaring pavilion, finally arrived. The leader of the Nan clan's three heroes, Nan Tianba. Nan Tianba had just returned from a mission. He was still wearing his sinister-looking black armor as he sat on the main seat. He looked sternly at Yu Zhe, who was trembling on the ground, not daring to move. He then looked at the nervous Southern Heavenly Gate. Suppressing the two of them until they couldn't breathe, Nan Tianba finally suppressed his anger and said, "This king has only left the island to carry out a mission for 2 months, yet such a big thing actually happened. Third brother lost his life, and you still haven't caught the culprit. Second brother, you've really disappointed this king." At the same time, because Nan Tianba had just experienced a cruel massacre, his expression changed. A murderous aura combined with a powerful aura forced Yu Zhe, a middle-stage foundation-building expert, to lie on the ground, not daring to move a muscle. After all, the person before them was an existence that surpassed the peak of the foundation establishment realm in the South Heaven Gate. He was a true Golden Core expert who was regarded as a cornerstone of the 3 great pavilions. In addition to Yu Zhe, even the South Heaven Gate, the eldest senior brother in charge of the sky-soaring pavilion, had his forehead covered in cold sweat. "Big brother, it's not that I don't want to avenge third brother. It's just that I've already told you in detail. This Kong Ming Ming not only involves Su Lingchong, but also eldest Miss Shangguan. This is no small matter. I really don't dare to act blindly without thinking." South Heaven Gate complained with a sullen face. Hearing this, Nan Tianba couldn't help but frown. With his powerful Golden Core stage strength, people like Su Lingchong and Shanghai Laner couldn't even enter his eyes. He didn't care about them at all, but the big shots behind them were the ones who stood at the peak of the entire North Island. Even a Golden Core stage expert, like him, didn't dare to provoke them. What's more, now that Su Lingchong was eyeing the position of the eldest senior brother in charge of the sky-soaring pavilion, this was the time when they needed a relationship with the higher-ups. Otherwise, if a big boss like Shanghai Tianhua were to casually open his mouth, South Heaven Gate would have no choice but to give up his position without any resistance. After a long silence, Nan Tianba finally opened his mouth and said, "Fine, this situation is indeed difficult to deal with. This matter can't be completely blamed on you. The most important thing right now is to protect your position as the eldest senior brother in charge of the sky-soaring pavilion. As for third brother, we'll think of a way to avenge him later." Southern Heaven Gate's position could allow him to gain a lot of benefits. Even Nan Tianba benefited a lot from it. Therefore, even if Southern Heaven Gate wanted to give up, he wouldn't agree. Seeing that Nan Tianba finally didn't hold on to Third Brother's matter, Southern Heaven Gate immediately let out a sigh of relief and nodded, "I'll listen to Big Brother's orders. You've always been resourceful. Why don't you tell me what we should do next?" Nan Tianba gestured for Southern Heaven Gate to come up with a plan. Although he was the eldest of the Nan family's 3 heroes, and his strength was undeniable, he didn't like these troublesome matters. "Big Brother, just the 2 of us alone aren't enough. Therefore, I think it's necessary to let Middle Island's uncle come forward and write a letter to the higher-ups of the Sky-Soaring Pavilion. Even if we can't convince all of them, we can at least increase our prestige. At least we won't appear to be too weak. These higher-ups will still have some concerns and won't all side with Su Lingchong." Southern Heaven Gate suggested. "All right, we'll do as you say. I'll write a letter to Uncle now." Nan Tianba nodded his head and then sighed. "It's fortunate that our grandfather has been in closed-door cultivation for the past few years. Otherwise, with his influence, if he were to come forward and say a word, who in the Sky-Soaring Pavilion's higher-ups would dare to say a word?" "That's right. I hope the old man can successfully go into closed-door cultivation this time. When the time comes, we'll be able to hold our heads up high." Southern Heaven Gate also had a face full of emotions. After the 2 brothers finished their discussion, Nan Tianba's gaze shifted to Yu Zhe. His face suddenly turned cold, and he coldly snorted. "Third Brother's death was all because of you. According to my original plan, I wanted to kill you to comfort Third Brother's soul in heaven." Hearing this, Yu Zhe was instantly covered in a cold sweat. All of the hairs on his body stood up. Nan Tianba's killing intent was real. These words weren't a joke. Luckily, Nan Tianba had another sentence. "However, seeing that Third Brother has always praised you as a disciple, I'll spare your dog life today." "Scram!" Yu Zhe hurriedly shouted. "Eldest martial uncle, please wait. This disciple has been reading ancient books in the library for the past 3 years. I know of a treasure that can help you become the strongest nascent soul expert." What a joke! He didn't hesitate to reveal the secret of the star ink stone because he coveted the Southern Heaven Gate's minor phaseless technique. Moreover, if he stayed, this eldest martial uncle would have even more benefits. How could he let go of this opportunity? Chapter 3876. In front of eldest martial uncle, this disciple wouldn't dare lie. However, this item is the same as the star ink stone. It has only appeared in ancient books. Normal people wouldn't be able to recognize it even if they saw it. Yu Zhe vowed. His meaning was clear. Others might not be able to recognize this item, but only he could. Nan Tianba was finally moved. After pondering for a moment, he said, "All right, you can follow Second Brother for now. If I have time, I will personally teach you. In the future, do things for me well. If you have any other thoughts, you know what will happen." This disciple understands. Yu Zhe was immediately overjoyed. Now that he had stolen Nan Tianyong's inheritance, if he could obtain the minor phaseless godly skill of the Southern Sky Gate and Nan Tianba's personal teaching, even without the star ink stone, his future would be just around the corner. In the blink of an eye, a month passed by in the blink of an eye. The 16th round of the newcomer competition had officially begun. Damn, what is this woman thinking? Does she really want to go against me? Meng Jueguang looked at Morong Zhan's enchanting figure from afar and clenched his teeth in anger. In this month, Morong Zhan had been methodically moving up from the last cave to the top. Her intentions were self-evident. What Linny could see, he could also see. However, The problem was that even though he knew what Morongzhen was planning, he could only hold it in. This kind of feeling was really depressing. If Morongzhen had immediately sided with Lin Yi, then for Meng Jueguang, although the situation would have been worse, he wouldn't have felt so bad. However, this suspense could be solved in today's round. Now that the newcomer competition had already been over 10 rounds, it was beginning to end. The ranking of the caves had already been determined, so there wouldn't be too many variables. First place, Lin Yi. Second place, Qiao Hongkai. Third place, Xiao Ran. Fourth place, Meng Tong. Fifth, Morongzhen. This was the current top 5 of the newcomers' cave-dwelling rankings in Blue Cloud Pavilion. As for the other strong person, Li Zhongming, he did not reveal his strength at the early stage of the building foundation realm in the past dozen rounds of competition. He was originally ranked second in the cave abode competition, but he wisely chose a roundabout strategy. He took the opportunity when other newcomers challenged him to admit defeat. Not only did he push himself to the cave abode with a lower ranking, but he also successfully bypassed Morongzhen, who was coming at him fiercely. He killed 2 birds with 1 stone. According to the current ranking, today's rookie challenge was the best round to see Morongzhen's true intentions. The reason was simple: she had Meng Tong above her. In the previous rounds, although the rookies that Morongzhen had challenged were nominally Meng Jueguang's subordinates, they were not the core members of Meng Jueguang's faction. However, Meng Tong was different. He was a direct disciple that Meng Jueguang had nurtured with all his might. This was where Meng Jueguang's bottom line was. It did not matter if Morongzhen challenged other newcomers, but if she challenged Meng Tong today, it would be equivalent to declaring war with Meng Jueguang officially. From then on, in Meng Jueguang's eyes, Morongzhen would be a sworn enemy like Lin Yi. There would be no room for negotiation. However, if Morongzhen were to skip Meng Tong and challenge Xiao Ran, who was ranked higher than her, that would mean that she would be friendly to Meng Jueguang. In Meng Jueguang's eyes, Morongzhen would be one of his own people that he could use. She would be friendly to Meng Jueguang. In Meng Jueguang's eyes, Morongzhen would be one of his own people that he could use. Whether they were friends or foes, it all depended on Morongzhen's choice today. Before the battle, Meng Tong asked Meng Jueguang nervously, "Ninth cousin, if Beauty Morong challenges me today, what should I do?" Although the Meridian heart-shattering pill was already in place, under Meng Jueguang's deliberate arrangement, Meng Tong had not taken it yet. He was still in the early stage of the foundation building realm. Morongzhen, on the other hand, was at the peak of the early stage of the foundation building realm. "What do you mean, what should we do? If she dares to challenge you, it means that she's our enemy. Fight her with all your might." Meng Jueguang snorted coldly. Then he looked at Meng Tong and said suspiciously, "I heard that this slut often takes the initiative to invite people to her wooden hut to have tea. Don't tell me you're involved, too?" "Huh. No, definitely not." Meng Tong denied it immediately. Over the past month, not only did Morongzhen successfully make Meng Jueguang and Lin Yi hesitant, but because her position was gradually stabilized, some of the Blue Cloud Pavilion's newcomers began to go with the flow. The most obvious example was when they accepted Morongzhen's invitation to participate in the so-called wooden tea party at her small wooden hut. Of course, it was a very pure tea party in name. To put it bluntly, they were going to watch Morongzhen, the slut, perform an erotic dance. Even if they could not taste any substantial sweetness, being able to see such a delightful and enchanting beauty wearing simple clothes and posing in various seductive postures was still enough to make them salivate. Moreover, the benefits of participating in Morongzhen's tea party were not just a feast for the eyes. For the low-level Blue Cloud Pavilion rookies, there were actually substantial benefits. As it turned out, Morongjun had deliberately avoided the rookies who were invited to participate in the wooden tea party during the month's rookie challenge. Otherwise, she would not have been able to fight her way from the so-called 16th cave at the foot of the mountain to the 5th cave at the foot of the mountain in just a month. The two rookies who had skipped the challenge had actually profited. Not only could they feast their eyes at the wooden tea party, they could also lose less challenge points in the rookie challenge. Why not? However, this was not without its disadvantages. At least when Meng Jueguang saw that Morongjun had deliberately let the two of them go, the two of them had already been blacklisted. Even if they did not betray her on the surface, when the time came, Meng Jueguang would definitely settle the score. This was also the reason why Morongjun could only entice two rookies in a month despite being so tempting. Although the others were also drooling under Meng Jueguang's tyranny, there were many who had evil intentions, but not many who had the guts to do so. Really? Meng Jueguang shot a glance at Meng Tong. This fellow was his most valued younger brother. If the other rookies were fence-sitters, he would at most be annoyed. However, if even Meng Tong had a problem, then, as the senior steward, he would be a general without an army. Meng Jueguang did not doubt Meng Tong's loyalty, but he did not dare compliment this fellow's intelligence. If Morongjun casually teased him, then there might be a problem. So he had to be careful. I really didn't. I can swear an oath. Ninth cousin, you can't listen to other people's slander. Meng Tong hurriedly swore. Chapter 3877. Humph, that's good. We'll see what that woman, Morongjun, will choose later. If she knows what's good for her, there will still be a place for her in the future. However, if she's blind enough to challenge you, then there's nothing to be afraid of. Just fight her with all your might. She won't dare to kill you. Meng Jueguang snorted coldly. Okay. Meng Tong subconsciously shrank his neck. Meng Jueguang sounded very confident, but the person she was going up against was him, Meng Tong. What if this woman was unscrupulous? Wouldn't he be beaten to death? Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Morongjun leisurely walked up to the ring. In every round of the newcomer challenge, it had become a tradition for the newcomers of Blue Cloud Pavilion to watch this beauty go up first. There had been no exception for more than a month. Morongjun's pair of seductive peach blossom eyes slowly swept across everyone's faces, especially when her gaze landed on Meng Jueguang and Lin Yi. She even paused for a moment meaningfully. Only when everyone's hearts were hooked did she slowly speak. Lord Judge, Morongjun from cave number 5 at the foot of the mountain challenges. Xiao Ran from cave number 3 at the foot of the mountain. Morongjun smiled charmingly. Her eyes finally fell on Xiao Ran. She even threw a seductive glance at him. As soon as she finished speaking, the crowd went into an uproar. Not only were Meng Jueguang and Lin Yi concerned about Morongjun's stance, but the other newcomers were also very concerned. However, they might not be able to guess the woman's intentions as early as the two of them. Skip Meng Tong and challenge Xiao Ran. Meng Jueguang immediately let out a sigh of relief. Morongjun's action was undoubtedly a gesture of goodwill, although it did not mean that this woman would rely on him. Through this action, he could at least be sure that the person Morongjun wanted to deal with was Lin Yi, not him, Meng Jueguang. This woman is quite sensible. Meng Jueguang smiled complacently, although Morongjun's action of stealing from him previously made him very angry. As long as Morongjun went to deal with Lin Yi's group, he would be a natural ally. They could be roped in and used. It's more than that. Ninth cousin brother, this beauty Morong is actually with us. Meng Tong chuckled. Now, not only did he not have to bite the bullet and fight with Morongjun, but he could also imagine his beautiful future. Since they were on the same side, surely Morongjun, that slut wouldn't mind letting him, Meng Tong, have a taste of sweetness? Under the gazes of the crowd, Xiao Ran, who was challenged by Morongzhen, did not seem to be surprised. He exchanged glances with Lin, Yi, and the others. He immediately stepped into the arena. Please advise me. Xiao Ran cupped his fists at Morongzhen. His expression was calm, and he did not panic at all. Seeing that, Morongzhen could not help but chuckle. Brother Xiao Ran is so elegant. I didn't notice it before. Xiao Ran had always been the kind of person who did not show his strength. Even though everyone knew that he was Lin Yi's right-hand man, and that his strength should not be underestimated, very few people would pay attention to him. On the contrary, people like Xiao Honkai were more eye-catching. Ever since she came to the welcome pavilion, Morongzhen had been observing everyone. Lin Yi was the first to be targeted, and his subordinate, Xiao Ran, would not be let go. However, she had always thought that this person was ordinary. Now that she stood in the arena and fought with him, she suddenly realized that this person was not simple at all. With his strength in the early stage of the foundation building realm, he was fighting against an expert at the peak of the early stage of the foundation building realm. However, he was still able to maintain such a calm and collected manner. How could such a person be an ordinary person? Even if his boss, Lin Yi, were to fight him, he would not be able to do as well. She really did not understand why this guy would follow Lin Yi so easily. Brother Xiao Ran, after this, are you interested in coming to my wooden tea party? I'm willing to wait for you. Morongzhen tempted him with her charming eyes. Everyone in the audience swallowed their saliva in envy when Morongzhen told them before. He did not say anything so sincere. Even the two who were brave enough to go to the meeting could only enjoy the view. It was impossible for them to make a move on Morongzhen. However, now that Morongzhen said that in front of everyone, did it not mean that such a salivating flower was going to fall on Xiao Ran, the silent cow dung? If I were Xiao Ran, I'd agree to it first. It's a free advantage, don't you think so, boss? Xiao Honkai joked with Lin Yi. Lin Yi could not help but laugh when he heard that. Right, my foot. This is a man-eating flower that eats people. There's no such thing as a free advantage. By the time you taste the sweetness, you'll already be a piece of meat in her mouth. It's wishful thinking to escape unscathed. TSK, what a scary woman. Xiao Honkai shrank her neck when she heard that. She turned around and looked at the arena with anticipation. I'm very curious about how Xiao Ran, the silent and taciturn guy, will react. Maybe he's also a man who's cold on the outside. Then we'll just watch. Linny smiled. He was not worried about Morongzhen's seduction at all. If Xiao Ran could not control himself so easily, he would not have been able to escape from the cruel competition in the secular world. Faced with Morongzhen's undisguised seduction, which could even be called bold seduction, Xiao Ran's face actually turned red. He looked a little shy, like a little boy. Yo, Brother Xiao Ran is actually shy. How cute. Morongzhen's eyes instantly lit up. She had been in the brothel for so many years, but she had never seen a guy among the cultivators who would blush after being casually teased. It was really too rare. Morongzhen was not the only one who found it strange when Xiao Ran blushed. Even Lin Yi and the others who were below the stage were taken aback. They could not help but look at each other. No way. He's blushing after being casually teased. Has this guy never had a serious relationship with a woman before? He's too honest. The others, including Meng Tong, laughed wantonly. This guy can't still be a virgin, can he? This is too funny. A cultivator in the early stage of the foundation building realm has not even touched a woman before. He's such a failure in life. As for Meng Jueguang, he glared at the important parts of Morongzhen's body greedily. This woman is really 100%. After a while, Xiao Ran's expression returned to normal. He said awkwardly, "Miss Morong, I'm not interested in the wooden tea party. If there's nothing else, let's start as soon as possible." Chapter 3878. Initially, she wanted to tease Xiao Ran a little more. However, seeing that Xiao Ran had adjusted his expression and was unmoved, she lost interest and said, "Fine, fine, fine. Since Xiao Ran wants to fight, I'll play with you." As soon as she finished speaking, Morongzhen let out a charming snort, and her figure swiftly flew towards Xiao Ran. As soon as she made her move, everyone below the ring, including Meng Jueguang and Lin Yi, widened their eyes and observed her abilities. Although she had been at the Welcome Pavilion for a month and was always the first to fight in every round of the newcomers' challenge, due to the huge difference in abilities, every newcomer who was challenged by her, an expert at the peak of the early stage of the foundational building realm, would admit defeat. Therefore, nobody had seen her fight for the past month. However, Xiao Ran, whom she was facing now, was not an ordinary newcomer. As an expert in the early stage of the foundational building realm, although Morongzhen felt pressured, it was not to the point where she would not dare to fight. With Xiao Ran's background, unless Morongzhen was undefeatable among those in the early stage of the foundational building realm, it would not be easy for her to defeat Xiao Ran even if she was confident of winning. As soon as Morongzhen moved, Xiao Ran moved as well. With an exquisite body technique like the shadow step, Xiao Ran was never an expert who liked to fight head-on. Xiao Ran's fighting style was to use the shadow step to deal with his opponent and look for opportunities to attack. It was because of this fighting style that he had the confidence to fight Morongzhen, an expert at the peak of the early stage of the foundational building realm. If it were Qiao Hongkai, who was used to fighting head-on, challenging someone who was of a higher level would be suicide. "Yo, brother Xiao Ran, you have such a good body technique." Morongzhen's eyes brightened. Because she had the advantage in terms of strength and rank, her speed was clearly faster than Xiao Ran's. In theory, Xiao Ran should not be able to escape from the palm of her hand. However, in the limited space of the arena, Xiao Ran made it impossible for her to make a move. This was all thanks to the shadow step. The speed in a straight line might not be very fast, but in such a small area, it was definitely second to none, even when compared to all the movement techniques. However, even then, Xiao Ran did not dare to be careless in the slightest. This was because he had already pushed his disorienting steps to its limits. However, the most he could do was to contend with Morongzhen. He could remain undefeated, but he would not be able to find an opportunity to attack. After all, an expert at the peak of the early stage of the foundation establishment realm was not that easy to deal with. Other than the little bit of kinship between her and Elder Morong, it was mainly because of her own strength. This woman was not as simple as a vase that looked good, but was useless. With regards to this situation, Xiao Ran had long since anticipated it. If he could seize the initiative just by relying on the shadow step alone, then his opponent would be too weak. However, if this continued, the situation wouldn't be advantageous to him. The effects of the shadow step were shocking, but it also consumed a large amount of vital energy. If this continued, Xiao Ran felt that he would not be able to outlast Morongzhen. Just as Xiao Ran was about to take the risk and wait for an opportunity to make his move, Morongzhen, who was chasing after him, suddenly giggled. "Brother Xiao Ran, people say that a man chasing a woman is like a mountain apart. A woman chasing a man is like a mountain apart. I've been chasing after you for so long, you should at least give me a response." Flirting again. Although Xiao Ran did not want to bother with her, his shadow step slowed down a little. Then his heart shuddered, and a murderous intent suddenly appeared behind him. Xiao Ran was already very careful, While he was using Shadow Step to evade the attacks, Xiao Ran was extremely cautious. While he was using the Shadow Step to deal with Morongzhen, he was constantly paying attention to his opponent's position and movements. However, in that split second, Morongzhen's fingertip flashed with a piercing light. She was 50 feet away just a moment ago, but in the blink of an eye, she had already appeared behind Xiao Ran. Bang! Under the astonishment of everyone present, Xiao Ran directly fell out of the ring. Lin Yi and the others reacted and immediately went forward to help him up to check his injuries. They asked in concern, "Are you all right? Are you badly injured?" Before Xiao Ran could speak, Morongzhen spoke on his behalf. She said in a tone that was half surprised and half regretful, "Of course he's all right. Brother Xiao Ran, you're the first person in the early stage of the foundation building realm to be able to dodge my phantom finger. You should be proud of yourself." Under the support of his senior brother and Xiao Hongkai, Xiao Ran slowly stood up. His expression was rather unpleasant. "Thank you for your guidance, Miss Morong. If there's a chance in the future, I'll definitely return the favor." He was certain that Morongzhen did not hold back at all from that attack just now. She really did want to kill him. Her words were as sweet as honey, but when she found a chance to distract him, she immediately struck a fatal blow. This woman was just as Boss Lin Yi had said. She had the heart of a snake and scorpion. If it were not for the fact that he was naturally alert and constantly on guard, he might not have been able to dodge that attack even if he used the Shadow Step. Besides, he had also used the convenience of being at the edge of the stage. If he jumped off the stage, it would be considered as him forfeiting the fight. Otherwise, even if he was lucky enough to dodge the attack, Morongzhen would definitely have a killing move up her sleeve. "Brother Xiao Ran, you're making me really scared. Why don't we change the method? How about we go to my wooden hut next time? I'm looking forward to it." Morongzhen's pair of seductive eyes could not stop glistening. Her adoration was clearly written on her face. It was as if she had not tried to kill Xiao Ran at all. She changed her attitude faster than flipping the pages of a book. This woman was really one of a kind. Lin Yi and the others shook their heads speechlessly. Their understanding of Morongzhen had deepened. This woman was indeed not easy to deal with. She was not any easier to deal with than Meng Jueguang, the eldest senior brother, who was in charge. Seeing that Xiao Ran was ignoring her, Morongzhen had no choice but to give up on teasing him in boredom. She said in a coquettish voice, "Brother Xiao Ran, even though I've won, I'll leave the third cave at the foot of the mountain for you to stay. Don't forget to come to my wooden hut to play. I'll be waiting for you." After that, Morongzhen swayed her seductive waist and leisurely walked off the stage under the greedy gaze of the crowd. "Hongkai, if nothing goes wrong, this woman will definitely challenge you in the next round. When that time comes, don't try to be brave. Just admit defeat." Lin Yi warned Xiao Hongkai with a serious expression. "That's right. This woman is really dangerous. Even though I saw her move just now, I couldn't react in time. Today, I was lucky to be at the edge of the stage. Otherwise, I'd probably be a corpse by now," Xiao Ran said with lingering fear. Chapter 38-79. Xiao Ran, who was more adaptable, was already in such a state. If it was Xiao Hongkai, who only knew how to fight head-on, the consequences would be obvious. Judging from Morongzhen's performance today, if she had the chance to kill anyone in Lin Yi's group, she would not hold back. This article was written by starting players judging from the current situation. Although Morongzhen was stronger than the other two groups in Blue Cloud Pavilion, she was still alone. On the other hand, Meng Jueguang could only rely on Meng Tong, so it would be difficult for him to improve in a short period of time. Therefore, the strongest group was still Lin Yi's group. If they could take the opportunity to get rid of Xiao Ran and Qiao Hongkai, who were Lin Yi's two wings, it would be a good thing for both Morongzhen and Meng Jueguang. No one would let go of such an opportunity easily. Hearing Lin Yi's words, even if Qiao Hongkai wanted to put on a brave front, she could only nip it in the bud. She nodded and said, "Boss, don't worry. I treasure my life. I won't take things too hard." Hearing that, Lin Yi and the others could not help but laugh. "You dare to say that you treasure your life? Then who was the guy who almost died after fighting with Meng Tong in the previous 2 rounds? As expected, a few days later, in the 17th round of the newcomer challenge, Morongzhen challenged Qiao Hongkai, who was in the second cave at the foot of the mountain. Due to Lin Yi's warning, although Qiao Hongkai wanted to have a good fight with this evil woman, she chose to forfeit in the end. What a smart and cute young man. This was Morongzhen's evaluation of Qiao Hongkai. This was not a polite remark, but a sincere evaluation. If Qiao Hongkai was really stubborn, even if Lin Yi had warned him beforehand, Morongzhen could still provoke him to attack first. However, reality proved that no matter how Morongzhen tried to persuade Qiao Hongkai had been very restrained from beginning to end. He had the demeanor of a great general who was as steady as a mountain. Xiao Ran and Qiao Hongkai, the 2 subordinates of Morongzhen, received high praise from Morongzhen. But in this way, she was even more interested in Lin Yi. Although she tried to interact with Lin Yi on the first day she arrived at the Welcome Pavilion, she still had no idea how strong Lin Yi was. A person who could make Xiao Ran and Qiao Hongkai follow his orders could not be an ordinary person. 3 days later, the 18th round of the newcomer challenge began as scheduled. This was the final round of the assessment, so it naturally attracted a lot of attention. Everyone was rubbing their palms together, looking at the previous 4 rounds of the newcomer assessment. As long as one was capable, the challenge round was undoubtedly the easiest round to grab points. The 18th round was the last chance. If they did not fight now, they would be helpless when their points were deducted during the spiritual medicine assessment. Then, they would really want to cry, but no tears would come out. The intensity of this round's final round was imaginable. Other than that, there was another more important point. Morongzhen was currently in the second cave at the foot of the mountain. She had already defeated 2 of her subordinates, Xiao Ran and Qiao Hongkai. So, in this last round, would she challenge Lin Yi? One was an expert at the peak of the early stage of the foundational level. The other was the number 1 newcomer that everyone was helpless against. If these 2 were to fight, in the eyes of the newcomers at the Blue Cloud Pavilion, it would be like Mars colliding with Earth. This was a battle that could decide the future of the competition. However, Morongzhen was not a fool. Although she had already defeated Xiao Ran and Qiao Hongkai, it did not mean that she would take the initiative to go against Lin Yi. She was only expressing her goodwill to Meng Jueguang, but she did not completely support Meng Jueguang. However, she didn't fully support Meng Jueguang. If she were to challenge him today, Meng Jueguang would be the biggest beneficiary no matter who won. When the sandpiper and the clam fight, the fisherman benefits. There was no need to explain this logic. Before this, Morongzhen did not think much of Lin Yi, who was rumored to only be in the early stage of the foundational level. However, after witnessing the potential of Xiao Ran and Qiao Hongkai, she changed her mind. Based on Lin Yi's strength, even if he was really in the early stage of the foundational level, he would not be easy to deal with. If she was not careful, she might fail miserably. Therefore, according to Morongzhen's initial plan, she did not plan to challenge Lin Yi today. However, what Meng Jueguang said last night made her change her mind. The higher-ups have decided that I will take over the position of the 3rd Pavilion Master of the Welcome Pavilion soon. Whether this news is true or not, I believe with Lady Morong's connections, it will not be difficult to verify. When that time comes, the position of the new manager of the Blue Cloud Pavilion will be vacant. This sentence made Morongjan's heart palpitate. Over the past month or so, she had found out that the reason she was sent to the Welcome Pavilion was all because of Lu Tianyu. Not only was he Su Lingchong's sworn brother, but he was also the young master of the Soaring Sky Pavilion with a powerful background. Moreover, he had spread the news of her offending Lady Shangguan to everyone, causing Morongjan to become a street rat in the Soaring Sky Pavilion. Even Elder Morong, who was behind her, did not dare to speak up for her, let alone speak up for her. If nothing unexpected happened, her becoming a disciple of the Blue Cloud Pavilion was already a foregone conclusion. In the future, even if she entered the 3 great pavilions, she would still be a member of the Blue Cloud Pavilion and would not be able to return to the Soaring Sky Pavilion. If she wanted to stand out in the Blue Cloud Pavilion and take revenge on the Lady Shangguan Laner, she could only rely on herself. As for the position of the eldest senior brother in charge of the newcomers in the Welcome Pavilion, even though it was not that important, nor did it have much power, if Morongjan could hold the position while she was still a newcomer, it would be a very glorious and rare resume. After that, once she entered the Blue Cloud Pavilion, she would immediately be promoted to a higher rank. This kind of opportunity was almost impossible to come by. Morongjan wanted this position, and if he were to really be promoted to the 3rd Pavilion Master, as Meng Jueguang had said, then he would be the previous Pavilion Master, as well as the immediate superior. Hence, he would have a great say in the candidate for the position. Meng Jueguang could see through Morongjan's ambition, so he proposed this condition. He recommended Morongjan to be promoted to the position, and the price was to challenge Lin Yi. Honorable Judge, number 2 at the foot of the mountain, Morongjan would like to challenge number 1 at the foot of the mountain, Lin Yi. After Morongjan went up the stage, she no longer acted coquettishly like she usually did. Her expression was unprecedentedly stern and stern. In the midst of the uproar, Lin Yi raised his head in surprise. He did not believe that a woman like Morongjan would be willing to become Meng Jueguang's subordinate. Now that she had done such a stupid thing, there must be a reason behind it. Fine, it's been a long time since I've fought with someone. It's just the right time to loosen up. The corner of Lin Yi's mouth curled into a smile. He calmly walked up the stage. Chapter 3880. Hee, this is going to be interesting. I've never seen Boss with such a strong desire to fight, Xiao Hongkai said excitedly. Xiao Ran nodded in agreement. He had seen Lin Yi fight in the secular world, but he had been quiet ever since he came to Heavenly Island. Even if he did, it was just a small fight. He had never seen Lin Yi get serious. Nobody knew that although Lin Yi had been keeping a low profile ever since he came to Heavenly Island, he was not always quiet. Not only did he beat Yuja half to death, but he also blew up Nan Tianyong, a master in the late stage of the foundation building realm, to the brink of death. It was just that nobody knew he was Second Lin. The bitter senior brother next to him was a little worried. Morongjan is at the peak of the early stage of the foundation building realm. Junior brother Lin might be in danger. Sigh, it's better to be careful. Seeing Lin Yi walk into the ring calmly, Morongjan suddenly chuckled. Brother Lin, I've been wanting to fight with you for a long time. Now that I finally have the chance, you must go easy on me later. Lin Yi nodded. Don't worry, I will. F***CK. The crowd below the ring could not help but curse. Morongjan was a master in the peak of the early stage of the foundation building realm. She was just being polite, but Lin Yi was only in the early stage of the foundation building realm. What was he trying to act tough for? As expected of a pretentious person, he would never forget to act tough in any situation. Not only did the crowd below the ring look down on him, but even Morongzhen was surprised. Isn't his attitude and tone a little too arrogant? Morongzhen only came back to her senses after being stunned for a while. That's great. Brother Lin, you must keep your word. As soon as he finished speaking, Morongzhen's body turned into nothingness. When he reappeared in the next moment, he was less than 3 inches away from Lin Yi. His fingertip was pointed at Lin Yi's throat with blinding white light. Phantom finger. When he fought against Xiao Ran last time, Morongzhen at least managed to stall for a while. However, this time, he used a killing move right away. From this, it could be seen how important Lin Yi was to him. To be honest, even if he had not made a deal with Meng Jueguang, Morongzhen himself had wanted to teach Lin Yi a lesson. Even though he had taken the initiative to seduce him, this fellow did not appreciate it at all. How could he let such a blind fellow go so easily? Women were very vengeful creatures. So fierce, women are not to be trifled with. Lin Yi pursed his lips, pretending to be alarmed. However, he was not in a hurry. He used the butterfly's subtle steps and dodged Morongzhen's surprise attack at the critical moment. Big Brother Lin is indeed not simple. Her attack missed. Although Morongzhen had expected this, he was still somewhat disappointed. However, this also confirmed her speculation. Lin Yi's ability was indeed far above Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai. Otherwise, if it was Xiao Ran, even if he could dodge this attack, he definitely would not have been able to do it so easily. Morongzhen saw it very clearly. Although Lin Yi's response seemed dangerous, it was completely within his control. He was able to deal with her phantom finger so easily. This man's ability was not as simple as the early stage of the foundational building realm. It was simply unfathomable. Lin Yi smiled. Up until now, he had yet to use his true ability. Although Morongzhen's ability was not bad, she was still quite a distance away from him. Although she was not considered weak among the early stage of the foundational building realm, compared to him, she was still quite a distance away. Even if he did not use a cheating move like the Qi Bomb, Lin Yi could fight evenly with Yu Zhe, a middle-stage foundational building realm master, with his own ability. He could even beat his opponent half to death. However, compared to Yu Zhe, Morongzhen was obviously weaker. Morongzhen could not help but let out a cold snort when he saw that. At the same time, she was secretly annoyed. She completely stopped looking down on him, looking at the situation before her. It was obvious that Lin Yi, who was in the early stage of the foundational building realm, was looking down on her, who was in the peak of the early stage of the foundational building realm. Brother Lin, do you know why my move is called Phantom Finger? Morongzhen suddenly giggled. Phantom Finger? Lin erased his eyebrows. Her move was fast, and the blinding white light did have the effect of confusing people. However, it did not seem to match the word phantom. Just as Lin Yi and the crowd below the ring were waiting for an explanation, Morongzhen suddenly moved. At first glance, her move looked exactly the same as before. However, that was only in the eyes of the spectators below the ring. From Lin Yi's point of view, it was a completely different feeling. The phantom finger, just now, was merely a flash of white light. However, in Lin Yi's eyes, there were dozens of white lights coming from all directions at the same time. There was no way for him to dodge. Visual deception? Lin Yi reacted immediately. She was using visual deception to create the so-called phantom effect, so that people could not defend against it. However, wasn't this a little too much? At a lower level, this kind of move was indeed brilliant and impossible to defend against. However, for cultivators above the foundational level, even if they closed their eyes and did not use their sight, they could still rely on their superhuman senses to fight. There was no doubt that Lin Yi's senses were sharp. However, when he closed his eyes, he suddenly realized that something was wrong. Because when he closed his eyes, the dozens of white lights were still in his brain. Did you think my phantom finger was only deceiving your eyes? Brother Lin, you are too childish. Seeing this, Morongjin laughed coldly. If it was such a low-level martial arts technique, how could it be her signature move? Phantom finger did not simply deceive one's sight. What it deceived was one's divine sense. At the foundational level, it was difficult to rely on basic senses such as sight and hearing to control a battle. What cultivators relied on the most was divine sense. The core of the phantom finger that Morongjin cultivated was to deceive divine sense. For most cultivators, once their divine sense could not distinguish the real from the fake, they would be at a loss. The speed was extremely fast, but it was difficult to tell the real from the fake. The phantom finger was a powerful martial arts technique that focused all the qi into one point to create explosive damage. Morongjin's target was usually the throat, which was a fatal point. Individually, these points were not too difficult to deal with. However, if they were combined, even a peak early-stage foundational cultivator would be under a lot of pressure. Interesting. Is this woman finally going all out? Lin Yi can only wait for his death. Meng Jueguang's eyes brightened as he watched. From other people's perspective, Morongjin's move was no different from the first test. The only person who had been deceived was Lin Yi, who was on the stage. However, Meng Jueguang had heard of the phantom finger technique before. You're tuning in to the Mystic Fist YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.